Chapter 32:15. On this battlefield there were many people who had already died or who would die. This was war, a war of life and death. Those familiar faces would never be seen again. However, war was unavoidable. For humanity, for their descendants, this war had to be fought. If they did not bear it, their descendants would bear it. Above heaven, corpses fell one after another. Blood Ancestor leaned on his walking stick and stood outside the main hall. He looked at Master Shan's corpse and sighed. I will die soon too. Star Devourer, Prison Dragon and Ancestral Turtle were fighting in the starry sky. Soon another corpse fell. It was Moon Ghost from the Three Moons Alliance. She was killed by a strange creature who was also the reinforcements of the Eternals. That strange creature was killed by Wuxia in an instant. Above the starry sky tree, Lucci was fighting an alien. Nong Yi blocked the seed garden while Shi Wei went to the mother tree. Battles were happening everywhere. This was a grand war. Although it came suddenly, humanity was already prepared. Life and death were the lightest things at this moment. In the starry sky, a big tree walked out. It lifted its thick trunk and ran towards the starry sky tree. Lucci was fighting an alien when his head was stepped on by the big tree. He was furious and wanted to chase after it, but he was stopped by the alien. The giant tree ran through the starry sky tree and headed for the fifth continent. It ran to the new universe, circled around, then penetrated the void and ran to above heaven. Under the shocked gazes of Elder Chan and the others, it stepped on the Star Devourer's head and disappeared. Crazy Principal Xiaochen rubbed his eyes. That was a tree? In the second disaster domain, the big tree ran over faster than anyone else. Parallel spacetime was meaningless to it. To it, the entire universe was like a sandbox. It could go wherever it wanted. Many people recognized the big tree here. Big Sister opened her mouth wide and shouted, "Damn tree, get your ass over here for this old lady." Lu Yuan and the ancient god looked over. That tree. Why did that thing appear? It always appears on the battlefield. The ancient god clearly remembered that during the Battle of Jiuhe in the Third Mainland, the big tree brought away many human experts. Su Wangtian was lost at that time. Ancestor Shi frowned when he saw the tree running over. This tree really knew how to find the right time to appear. Kong Tianzhao was kneeling on one knee. He was caught off guard by the branches and was dragged away. He was so stunned that he couldn't react in time. When he reached Kong Tianzhao, Big Tree panicked, thinking that someone was chasing after him. He frantically ran around the battlefield. Tianxi looked over coldly. Who was this tree again? If it had not been for it, Tai Chu would have died long ago. Thinking of this, he attacked the tree but was stopped by Jiang Feng. He couldn't save Kong Tianzhao, and the big tree happened to drag Kong Tianzhao away. Although the posture was not elegant, it was better than being dead. Kong Tianzhao was a righteous young master. Even if he trained hard in the wilderness, he still had a noble air about him. But now he was being dragged on the ground by a tree branch. Come over here. The Nether King walked out from behind Big Sister and grabbed the tree branch. The tree was frightened and became even more terrified as it frantically scurried about. Big Sister grabbed the tree branch with one hand and Magician with the other. Magician was in a daze when she dragged him over. Magician was one of the 5 elders under the Archer God. He was qualified to participate in the Chosen of Gods battle and was an expert who had survived the immemorial city battlefield. He had survived several battles and was extremely strong. Even Big Sis couldn't do anything to him. Now Big Sister wanted to follow Big Tree, so she had to drag him along. Magician quickly used his talent, the flame of truth, to burn the tree branch. But he found that the tree branch had a more terrifying flame that swallowed his flame of truth. He didn't dare to act rashly. Similarly, Xin Wu rushed toward Big Tree. He was about to be killed by Yi Rou. Maybe Big Tree could take him away from the battlefield. Yi Rou didn't chase after him. The abandoned person was faster than him. He appeared in front of Xin Wu and slashed with his broken blade. Xin Wu's head flew up. He was dead. Thunder descended. Under everyone's stunned gaze, Ancestor Ku rushed toward Big Tree with Ancient Thunder Locust in his arms. Big Tree was frightened and its branches shook. Ancient Thunder Locust roared with thunder, trying to shake Ancestor Ku off. But Ancestor Ku didn't move. Follow me to Ancient City. Thunder flashed above the flame. Ancient Thunder Locust struggled, but it couldn't get rid of Ancestor Ku. Ancestor Ku activated the victorious battle technique and held on to Ancient Thunder Locust tightly. He definitely couldn't win against Ancient Thunder Locust. It wasn't a creature at all. It was thunder. But that didn't stop him from taking the locust away. Qingping judged Muji. Trial rule: climb the tree. Muji was stunned. There was such a rule. Was this a competition of climbing the tree? Impossible. He immediately spun the wheel of life and death to see who was the winner. Big Tree fled frantically. Because of the fierce battle in Second Disaster Region, there were deep cracks everywhere. Big Tree missed a step and fell into one of the cracks. On the tree, Kong Tianzhao was being dragged. Big Sister grabbed the tree branch with one hand and Magician with the other. Ancestor Ku hugged Ancient Thunder Locust tightly and squatted on the tree trunk. The group fell with the tree and smashed into the solidified Divine Power Lake. Lu Yin and Bai Xianer were far away. Lu Yin and Bai Xianer looked at the tree in surprise. What's going on? Big Tree struggled frantically, trying to get rid of the creatures on its trunk. But it couldn't. It could only escape in the solidified Divine Power Lake. Bai Xianer looked into the distance. Ancient Thunder Locust? Ancestor Ku? Also, that's the Nether Ancestor. Big Tree appeared on the battlefield again. Big Tree was always involved in wars in human history. Now that it was happening in this spacetime battlefield, it was rare even in human history. So it wasn't strange for the tree to appear. This tree was related to Immortal City. Lu Yin didn't have time to care about the tree now. Bai Xianer was giving him too much pressure. The sequence rules were almost unsolvable. With his current strength, he was no match for her unless he became an ancestor. However, the 3 grains of primordial dust were far away. Bai Xianer couldn't let him get it. Since he couldn't break through in the mortal world, he could only use the infinite inner world. He had been a half-ancestor for so long. It was time for him to break through. Taking a deep breath, Lu Yin looked away from the tree and stared at Bai Xianer. Bai Xianer also looked at him. Brother Zhou Xian. Before she could finish, the tree rushed towards them. Bai Xianer looked at it coldly. Brother Zhou Xian, you can't leave with it. Let's not talk about whether you can leave or not. Will you give up on this battlefield? Lu Yin smiled bitterly. Of course not. Then accompany this battlefield and sink into oblivion. Bai Xianer's eyes were cold. Neither of them noticed that the tree's branches caused a ripple in the solidified Divine Power Lake. It formed a force that attracted the 3 grains of primordial dust from afar. Everyone's attention was on the tree. Especially Bai Xianer. As far as she could see, a dirt road appeared under the tree's 2 thick trunks. It was a materialized bearing. The tree walked in the void and also needed a bearing. Bai Xianer broke the dirt road, trying to force the tree to stay. The tree was startled and flames burned around it. These flames had burned the Book of Destiny and the surroundings of Immortal City, causing the Eternals to not dare to advance rashly. It had caused the deaths of countless heroes, and it had also burned Bai Xianer's sequence rules. On the tree, Big Sister shouted, "Little Seven, are you okay?" The withered ancestor hugged the primordial thunder locust tightly. We might have to go to Immortal City. Although I lost part of my memory, I have a feeling that we shouldn't fight the Eternals now. The tree fled frantically, burning Bai Xianer's sequence rules and causing the dirt road to disappear. At this time, Lu Yin saw the ripple behind the tree that had been pulled out, and 3 grains of beginning dust were coming along the ripple. Lu Yin's eyes widened. He didn't have time to respond to Big Sister and the withered ancestor. He waved his hand and the beginning dust came toward Lu Yin along the ripple. Bai Xianer saw it and hurriedly stopped him. Kong Tianzhao stabbed the tree trunk with his sword. The tree jumped up in shock and rushed toward Bai Xianer, blocking her. The flames burned, melting the surrounding divine power. On the Black Mother Tree, the only true god kept staring down. To him, the battle between Lu Yin and Bai Xianer was more interesting than the battle between Lu Yuan and the ancient gods, including Wu Tian against Di Qiong and the Lightning Lord against Tianxi. He didn't expect the tree to appear, and the flames around the tree couldn't be contained even with divine power. The flames blocked Bai Xianer's vision. Lu Yin caught the 3 grains of beginning dust in time. Between his eyebrows, the beginning dust was boiling hot. Lu Yin let go of his hand, and the 3 grains of beginning dust sank into his forehead and disappeared. Mavis, Mavis, Mavis. Kaihong, from now on this continent will be under your management. Everyone will call you Patriarch Mavis. Listen, isn't it awesome? Master, it sounds troublesome. How about we give them fertile land? We have fertile land too. What about Dechong? Dechong too. Who doesn't have it? There are 9 of us and you want to create 8 continents. Wuda, Nyonyo and Chuhiai don't have it. Their personalities aren't suitable. I can understand Nyonyo and Chuhiai, but Wuda isn't suitable? Wuda wants to educate everyone. How can they be limited to one continent? I don't know why, but I feel like you're mocking us. You misunderstand. De Chong, protect this continent well. Master, I will definitely bring a different life to this continent. What do you think if humans become 100 times, 1,000 times, or even 10,000 times bigger and form a race? De Chong, do you think I'm old and muddle-headed? Didn't I already have one? It's not as if I haven't seen gigantic humans in parallel time and space. Besides, I can grow myself. Look at my palm, how big is it? No, Master understands everything. How can I be muddle-headed? Alright, if that's the case, then add more life to your continent. Move those giant astral beasts with the worst personalities here too. What? Master, that's too much. Those giant astral beasts have more instincts than rationality. Of course, they should be handed over to De Huang. De Huang is more suitable to manage them. De Huang's way of doing things is simple and crude. You should do it. We humans have to live in harmony with the giant astral beast. We can't let those giant astral beasts become the spark of war. Then what about the divine eagle and ancestral mang? If it doesn't work, that warship fish can also disgust them. Don't you want to create a race of giants? Those giant astral beasts are so big. Maybe they can give you some inspiration. Master, I feel like you're messing with me. You misunderstand. Chapter 32:16. Big Yellow, it's not that I don't want to bring you along. With your strength, shouldn't you have already become an ancestor? Or, think about it. One day the astral beasts will give birth to a civilization similar to humans. They have their own history and culture and they have their own pride. You are their pride. Or, don't glare at me. I hope that you can enlighten these astral beasts. One day they will live in harmony with humans and our primordial space will be beautiful. Or, are you scolding me? I'm sure that you can protect them well. As time goes on, there will be more humans and some people will not be able to control their greed. This includes those from the outer realms who don't like our primordial space. The conflict between humans and astral beasts is the best place to start a war. Or, you misunderstand. 3 grains of inception dust entered his forehead, and Lu Yin heard many conversations and saw many scenes from the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th mainlands. These were the memories brought by the inception dust. The tree slipped away and Bai Xianer hurriedly attacked Lu Yin. Hand over the inception dust. Lu Yin dodged as he tried to break through his ancestor's seal. It was not enough to break through his ancestor's seal, but the inception dust's appearance was an opportunity. The inception dust's function was not just to turn nothingness into reality. More importantly, it was to pray to all living beings. Without praying to all living beings, how could a continent be formed? The ancestor's magnanimity could encompass the entire universe, which was why he had created 5 continents with the inception dust as the core. If Lu Yin wanted to transform the inception dust, he did not need any power. Instead, he needed to be magnanimous and listen to the prayers of all living beings. The wordless heavenly book had once heard countless voices, and it could be considered a shortcut for the inception dust. Now, the inception dust's appearance had shrunk this shortcut infinitely. Lu Yin continued to listen to the voices from the 3 continents. These ancient voices also contained the prayers of all living beings. He heard the 2nd continent's praise for the Mavis family, heard the 3rd continent's countless exclamations of surprise when the giant race was born, and heard the 4th continent's astral beasts roar. Gradually he heard more and more voices. However, it was still not enough. The voices he heard were still not enough. Lu Yin took out the wordless heavenly book, and a golden light flashed as it extended from the crack in the ground towards the 2nd zone. It was like a golden sword that pierced into the eyes of countless people. He heard the voice of the primordial space as well as the voices of many parallel universes connected to the primordial space. The mortal world became heavier and heavier. It had long since left the starry sky continent in his heart. It also longed for transformation and approached the 4 specks of dust between his brows. However, it was still not enough. He wanted to hear more voices, hear the prayers of all living beings, regardless of whether they were in the past, present, or future, regardless of where they were, regardless of whether they still existed. In the starry sky of trees, Zhu Mang suddenly opened his eyes. His huge body rushed towards the mortal realm. On the trunk of the mother tree, The divine eagle spread its wings and soared, tearing through the void as it headed toward the sixth mainland. They had memories. At this moment they seemed to have returned to the past, to the time when they followed the primogenitor. They stood with the divine eagle on their shoulders and had the ancestral mang wrapped around their waists. They could feel the primogenitor's determination to urgently need a weapon. The primogenitor was asking them for help. The ancestral mang traversed through the lower realms and reached the bottom of the starry sky of trees. It found the core of the fifth continent, the incipient dust. It bit down on it and shot up into the sky, tearing through the void as it sensed the location of the other incipient dust. On the sixth mainland, the divine eagle tore through the ground and grabbed the core. The incipient dust also tore through the void, releasing a cry that shook the entire primordial space as it headed for the second zone of calamity. Lu Yin constantly dodged Bai Xian'er's attacks, but Bai Xian'er's sequence laws suppressed him too much. Wounds appeared on his body and he bled incessantly. He wanted to hear more voices. 4 grains of incipient dust weren't enough. He wanted all 6 grains. Just as he was thinking about this, the ancestral mang and the divine eagle appeared in the sky of the second zone of calamity at the same time. Their gazes locked onto the ground of the zone of calamity as they smashed down. Atop the black mother tree, the sole true god's eyes widened. Not good. Stop them. However, on this battlefield, no one could free up their hands to stop the divine eagle and the ancestral mang. Even the 3 powers and 6 seas would not be able to stop them so easily. The divine eagle and the ancestral mang smashed through the second zone of calamity and rushed downwards. Lu Yin and Bai Xian'er looked up and saw a crack in the ground. Lu Yin's forehead burned even more. He was shocked. More incipient dust had appeared? Could it be? With a cry, the divine eagle flapped its wings and flew towards Bai Xian'er. Bai Xian'er was shocked. Divine eagle? She retreated. The divine eagle was definitely not weak. Could rival the 3 powers and 6 seas. Next, the ancestral mang appeared and locked onto Lu Yin. It didn't see Lu Yin but rather the primogenitor's towering figure. Primogenitor Master. Master needs a weapon. Master needs incipient dust. Master, we're here. 2 grains of incipient dust flew towards Lu Yin from the divine eagle and the ancestral mang's mouths. Bai Xian'er's eyes widened. Not good. She wanted to stop them, but the divine eagle and the ancestral mang rushed towards her. Unless one reached the primordial realm, it would be difficult to deal with them. After all, they were existences that had fought alongside the primogenitor. With them blocking the way, Lu Yin successfully received the 2 grains of incipient dust. He didn't have time to consider why the divine eagle and the ancestral mang had brought them to him. He only knew that the voices were enough. Incipient dust was the primogenitor's weapon. Praying to all life and suppressing the land was the primogenitor's path. Lu Yin's mortal world walked the path of the primogenitor. When he heard enough voices and felt the determination to pray to all life, the transformation of the mortal world would begin. Rumble. Thunder rumbled in the surroundings, shaking up the starry sky even more than the thunder from the ancient thunder locusts and the thundermaster Jiang Feng. Everyone in the second zone of calamity stopped and looked up at the sky. This sudden clap of thunder made everyone notice something. Afterwards, black cracks appeared without any prior signs. They just appeared in the starry sky, ripping apart space and the ground as if someone was attacking them indiscriminately. All the creatures in the second zone of calamity and the other 5 zones were frightened. They avoided the black cracks that had suddenly appeared. The starry sky shook and so did the ground. What's going on? Who's causing such a great disturbance? Why does it seem like they're about to break through? But even if they're breaking through, they can't affect the starry sky. That can't be. Has someone broken through to the primordial realm? When the ancient god and Lu Yuan broke through to the primordial realm, they had caused an extremely great disturbance. The laws of the sequence had been thrown into chaos, causing the entire battlefield to come to a standstill. Now it was basically the same scene, but it was different because the laws of the sequence had not been thrown into chaos. Instead, the entire starry sky had been thrown into chaos. The starry sky, the ground, and the distance affected the boundless battlefield. Stargates fell one after another. Everyone felt that something was wrong with the starry sky, but they couldn't put their finger on it. Only Lu Yuan, the ancient god, and the rest looked at the ground of the second zone of calamity. The changes were coming from underground. Lu Yuan's eyes were burning. Could it be? The battlefield was silent at this moment. Silence. Di Qiong panted heavily as he looked at the ground. He had a bad premonition. Ancestor, she frowned. It can't be. Breaking through now? This wasn't the Genesis space. This kid wanted to create his own path. Creating one's own path was a necessity for many powerhouses. Lu Yin was a powerhouse among powerhouses, so he should create his own path. But when he really wanted to do so, it would bring about a lot of shock. Even if everyone had expected it, it still wouldn't reduce the shock. Underground, Lu Yin looked up. Breaking through to the Ancestor Realm was the same as breaking through to the Half-Ancestor Realm. When he had broken through to the Half-Ancestor Realm, he had broken through 4 inner worlds at the same time. He had formed a mindset that breaking through to the Ancestor Realm required 4 inner worlds at the same time. But in fact he could do it one by one. At this moment he was using the mortal world to break through. Bai Xianer didn't attack again. In the case of breaking through to the Ancestor Realm, as long as one wanted to walk their own path, anyone who participated would be affected. This didn't just happen in the origin space but in the entire universe. In the Six Direction Society, there were people who didn't need to experience tribulations to break through to the Apex Realm. However, such people were too common. Wood God, Void Master, and the others who had created their own paths had all experienced tribulations. They didn't have to wait until they broke through to the Primordial Realm. When one reached the Ancestor Realm, they would undergo a metamorphosis and create a new path. Such an existence would disturb the universe's starry sky, and the universe's starry sky naturally wouldn't allow it. He didn't kill Tianqiong because Lu Yin didn't walk the path of the astral sources. However, a phenomenon even more terrifying than killing Tianqiong appeared. It was a phenomenon that shocked everyone. The starry sky of the zone of calamity distorted as scenes flickered. They were like mirages, but in reality they were parallel spacetimes. The parallel spacetimes overlapped with the zone of calamity's spacetime, twisting together and whistling towards Lu Yin with an earth-shattering momentum. Being in a parallel spacetime and seeing parallel spacetimes overlapped were two completely different feelings. It was like an ordinary person facing a tsunami. This scene shocked everyone. The sole true God looked around. The path that this child wanted to walk was something that parallel spacetimes could not endure. They wanted to destroy him. Was this child really going to create a parallel spacetime? Every ancestor's ancestral world was equivalent to a spacetime, but that spacetime couldn't be compared to a parallel spacetime in the universe. They were two completely different concepts. If it really could exist, it would be equivalent to opening up a space for this spacetime in the current universe. It would be equivalent to compressing all the other parallel spacetimes. The consequences would be extremely terrifying. When the starry sky appeared in Lu Yin's heart, it would be rejected by the current spacetime, forming a world of nothingness, let alone actually opening up a parallel spacetime. Lu Yin emerged from the underground of the zone of calamity and arrived on land. He saw the entire battlefield, the experts and the corpses. He raised his head and saw the scenes of spacetime that appeared more and more frequently. The disturbance from breaking through to the Ancestor Realm in the mortal world seemed to be even more exaggerated than he had imagined. Originally, he thought that it would be the same as breaking through to the Half-Ancestor Realm, where a supreme expert would appear to stop him or some spacetime phenomenon would appear. However, it was no longer as simple as a spacetime phenomenon. It was as if he couldn't exist in this universe and should be erased by it. Was he really that detestable? Thank you, brothers, for your support. Thank you. Last night I stayed up all night writing and I felt my scalp go numb. Looking at Windborn's update history, he had maintained 2 updates a day for 1,437 days. He had also added updates, but they were all for a period of time. I'll continue at 3 p.m. Thank you, brothers, for your support. Thank you. Chapter 32:17. In Immemorial City, the primogenitor squatted on the ground, gritting his teeth as he gripped the sequence's string. At this moment, the sequence's string was constantly trembling. He was surprised. Mr. Mu walked over. Hold on tight. The little guy's breakthrough caused quite a commotion. Even Immemorial City was affected. The primogenitor chuckled. It's not that big. I'm just fighting for a place to live. When I broke through, do you think the myriad races came because of that? No, they were scared by me. Those trash from the 4 protectors were also scared by me. Mr. Mu said indifferently, stop boasting. He's just an inner world ancestor. There are 3 more. You didn't break through, did you? Do you think I don't know? You broke through to the primordial realm. I broke through. You underestimated me. No, I broke through to the primordial realm. I'm very sure. Old Mu, taking Zhu Zi as your disciple is your pride. Apart from that, you're nothing. I won't change my words even if you belittle me. Hold on tight. Soon. In the second domain of disaster, Lu Yin felt the various parallel universes getting closer and closer to him. They were so close that he felt like he was about to be crushed. At this moment, a familiar scene appeared. It was the sixth mainland. The primordial space also appeared. Lu Yin came from the primordial space after all. If he wanted to create a new parallel universe, he would have to compress the primordial space first. The sixth and fifth mainlands were about to crush Lu Yin. Lu Yin took a deep breath. He knew that breaking through to the progenitor realm would be difficult, but he didn't think it would be this difficult. Who would have to endure the suppression of multiple parallel universes when breaking through to the progenitor realm? Though he had never heard of it. Lu Yuan, Hongyan Mavis, Wu Tian and Zhaoan Zhilua were stunned. They were peak experts in the 3 realms and 6 paths. They had seen a lot, but they had never encountered such a thing. Apart from their master, only their master had encountered a similar situation when he broke through. It made countless parallel universes tremble. The commotion back then was much greater than Lu Yin's, but that was when their master broke through to the primordial realm. The entire universe's laws were in chaos, while Lu Yin was only breaking through to the progenitor realm. Shaoqi. Lu Yuan was worried. Lu Tianyi, Qing Ping, Mu Feng and Jiang Feng looked at him worriedly. The commotion caused by breaking through was just too great. They didn't know how to stop it. Bai Xianer looked up at the scene calmly. The divine eagle and Zhu Meng cried out in worry. Lu Yin clenched his fists. Since his breakthrough in the mortal world had brought about such a calamity, then he would have to use the mortal world to resolve it. He closed his eyes. The second zone of disaster's void kept tearing apart. It even formed a black river that flowed backwards. It wasn't a real river but an endless number of void cracks connected together to form something that looked like a river. More and more spatial tears approached Lu Yin. From afar, Lu Yin looked like he was trapped in a black jar that was about to close. At this moment Lu Yin opened his eyes. Above his head, the mortal world appeared with 6 grains of primordial dust revolving around it. With his hands behind his back, he looked at the primordial space and said, I am the Tao Master of the Above Heaven sect. Today I'm determined to establish myself in this starry sky for the human race. I shall protect all living beings in this starry sky for the sake of the human race, be it humans or other species. Among the countless races in the universe, the human race is the most intelligent. The parallel spacetime trembled and rumbled. Endless void cracks flickered continuously. Fifth mainland, do you still recognize me? The fifth continent trembled. Sixth mainland, do you still recognize me? The sixth mainland trembled. Primordial space, do you still recognize me? My name is Lu Yin, the Tao Master of the Above Heaven sect. In the primordial space, countless people looked up and saw Lu Yin. Everyone could see that he was the Tao Master. Tao Master, I will lead the human race to be invincible. In this sky, in this universe, in the astral dome, who dares to rebel? No matter what path I walk, the human race will lead. I, Lu Yin, am right. The path I walk should be successful. Am I right? There was a brief moment of silence in the primordial space. Then there was a tsunami of cheers. Yes, Tao Master is right. The path you walk is right. You should succeed. Who dares to rebel? Daolord's path is right. Tao Master, the human race will lead. Tao Master is invincible. Tao Master is invincible. Tao Master is invincible. Countless voices converged into a river of stars that shook the entire primordial space. Everyone in the fifth mainland and the sixth mainland were shouting crazily. Soon after, many parallel universes in the Hexagon Society, including those in the outer realm, were shouting as well. Lu Yin stood in the void as countless voices appeared around him. He heard them again, but this time these voices were for him. This was what it meant to pray for all living beings. Praying for all living beings was both a prayer for all living beings and a prayer for all living beings. There was no limit to the universe. Only living beings could become the limit. Countless prayers transformed into a tsunami of power that caused the primordial space to crash into the parallel universes beside it. Dozens of parallel universes appeared in the Hexagon Society and crashed into the parallel universes that were trying to crush Lu Yin. The entire second disaster zone collapsed. Lu Yin was like a god. He did not need to do anything. No matter who it was, no one could cut off his path. The path he walked was right. Atop the Black Mother Tree, the sole true god's face sank. He looked at Lu Yin with an unprecedented murderous intent. This child had extraordinary innate talent, possessed a turbid treasure, and even established a glorious above-heaven sect. The sole true god could tolerate all of this, but this was the only thing he could not tolerate. This was because Lu Yin had obtained the support of countless people. It could even be said that he had obtained the support of the entire human race. No one could say for sure just how great this power was. The higher one's cultivation, the more one could understand just how terrifying this power was. At this moment, this child's threat surpassed everyone that the sole true god knew, including the primogenitor. In the distance, Tianxi's face sank even further. He wanted the people behind him to enter this universe and replace the people of this universe, but at this moment he saw his hopes dwindle. One person had obtained the support of the entire human race. What kind of terrifying power was this? This power had helped this person survive the calamity and could also help this person reach unprecedented heights. This was the support of an entire species. Bai Xian'er sighed, but it was too late. He could not stop this. Now that Lu Yin had broken through to progenitor realm, she had no idea how strong he would be. She could only hope that Lu Yin, who had broken through to progenitor realm, had not reached a level that she could not hope to reach. Otherwise, who would be able to keep him in check? In the sky, Lu Yin spread out his arms. Around him, the many parallel universes that had been crushing him disappeared, and everything returned to normal. As for his mortal world, it had transformed. It disappeared from between his eyebrows, and the progenitor dust that had been given to him by the primogenitor fell to the ground near his heart along with the other 5 progenitor dusts. One day these 6 progenitor dusts would be returned to the primogenitor, as they were his weapons. At this moment, there was a tiny dot between Lu Yin's eyebrows that was almost undetectable. This dot was his mortal world. The mortal world had transformed from an inner world into the progenitor realm, and there were countless voices within it. These voices were the prayers of all living beings, and this mortal world was the progenitor realm. Lu Yin had also stepped into the progenitor realm at this moment. Although he had only broken through to progenitor realm in one inner world, he was already a progenitor. He was a true progenitor. The divine eagle and ancestral mang rushed towards Lu Yin. Under the shocked gazes of countless people, Lu Yin stood with the divine eagle on his shoulder and the ancestral mang around his waist. He had not expected them to act like this. Hongyan Mavis' eyes reddened. "Ma master." The ancient god trembled. "Master." At this moment, Lu Yin's image was too similar to that of the progenitors. Many people recalled the past and saw that glorious era. Unfortunately, this only lasted for a short while. The divine eagle and ancestral mang stared blankly at Lu Yin's face before their gazes changed. They left without hesitation, recognizing that Lu Yin was not the progenitor. Hongyan Mavis and the others came to their senses. Lu Yin was still the same Lu Yin, not the progenitor. They all missed their master. Lu Yin lowered his head and looked at Bai Xian'er. "Second round, begin." He opened his hand and aimed it at Bai Xian'er. A column of soil appeared in the air, only as wide as a palm. It shot towards Bai Xian'er like a javelin. Bai Xian'er pointed a finger and collided with the soil. Her expression changed and she immediately twisted her body. The soil tore through her wrist and pressed down. Bai Xian'er was unable to block the column of soil. Lu Yin's gaze was cold as he bent his fingers, and cylindrical soil appeared in the air and shot towards Bai Xian'er like raindrops. Bai Xian'er used her sequence laws and trajectories appeared in the soil. This was the carrier, and as long as it was broken, the soil would also shatter. However, her expression changed in the next moment. She could only break a limited number of trajectories, causing the soil to shatter. Most of the remaining soil continued to shoot towards her. She stood in place without moving as the soil penetrated her body and shot into the ground. Bai Xian'er recovered once more, but this time she wasn't as relaxed as before. Her face was deathly pale. Lu Yin looked down from above. "Let's see how many more times you can use this recovery method." He raised his arm and a shocking scene appeared. Black dots covered the entire second zone. They were pieces of soil, and each piece of soil had a destructive power that even Bai Xian'er feared. He felt dizzy just looking at so much soil. Lu Yin pressed his arm down and the soil bombarded the entire second zone. Not only did it target Bai Xian'er, but it also targeted all the Eternals fighting against the Above Heaven sect, including the Four Guardians. Primordial Realm cultivators could use their laws to not get close, but Lu Yin wasn't using the sequence laws. He was only using the power of a progenitor. How strong could a progenitor be? In the past, Lu Yin felt that Xianxia was already at the peak of the progenitor realm. With the divine martial sword domain time scale and 9 clones, Xianxia was basically invincible. He truly believed that Xianxia wouldn't be any weaker than progenitor Chen. However, as his cultivation increased, his horizons gradually broadened, and he finally understood the sequence laws. However, Xianxia was still at the peak of the progenitor realm back then. He hadn't reached the level of the sequence laws, but it wasn't easy to defeat him below the sequence laws. Now Lu Yin had completely broken the upper limit of the progenitor realm. Thank you for your support, brothers. Thank you. Chapter 32:18. Without the sequence rules, this was the ancestor realm. A simple ancestor realm was no different from others. It was just an ancestor world, nothing more. However, it was this seemingly ordinary ancestor realm that was able to display unimaginably terrifying strength. Even Lu Yin had not expected the power of the mortal ancestors world after its transformation. Xianxia could not take it head-on. She could break through it or dodge it, but she could not take it head-on. Just like before, her body would be pierced. If Xianxia was like this, the others were no exception. In the second disaster zone, the ancient god Di Qiong, the arrow god, the forgetful ruins god, the ancestor of the past, as well as Di Xia and Jia, were all targeted by the earth spears. Jia was the first to die. His opponent was the venerable sovereign, and he was fighting against the venerable sovereign. He was one of the 5 elders under the arrow god of the 5th region's disaster region, and was a master of the sequence laws. He thought that he could block the earth spear with the sequence laws, but he had overestimated himself. Even Xianxia could not take it head-on, let alone Jia. The spears directly turned his body into a bloody mist that splattered on the ground. Emperor Shang was stunned by this sight. His pupil under Emperor's transformation surged with divine force, but he only managed to knock away the first spear. The second spear pierced his body and stabbed him into the ground, but it did not end his life. His strength was only second to Di Qiong in the 3rd disaster zone, and he was definitely an expert. He could barely be called a substitute for the 7 sky gods, but he was still far from Xianxia's level. Even if Xianxia did not use the sequence laws, Di Xia was not her opponent. Xianxia's battle prowess was definitely not below any of the 3 pillars and 6 voids. She was strong enough to fight an ancient god before reaching the primordial realm. Even if an ancient god reached the primordial realm, defeating Xianxia would not be easy. Even Xianxia could not take on the earth spears head-on. There were very few Eternals who could. It was not just the Eternals. The 4 Guardians were also within Lu Yin's range of attack. Tian Ci, Tian Feng and Tian En were all under the attack of the soil spears. These spears came from the power bestowed by the Qin ancestors' world. They carried the wishes of all living beings, and they wanted to strangle the parallel dimensions. At this moment they were displaying their terrifying power. However, the protectors were primordial realm experts after all. Even though they feared him, they would not be injured so easily. Arrow God fired arrow after arrow at the earthen spear, but Heavenly Lord Victorious struck him in the back. His back was almost torn to shreds. He had no choice but to use his innate skill and shed a layer of skin to protect himself. The earth spear pierced through the meditative ruins and headed straight for the god of forgotten ruins. It was not just one spear but several spears. The god of forgotten ruins' expression changed as he felt an extreme sense of danger. Above his head, the meditative ruins seemed to have a mind of their own as they stacked in front of the god of forgotten ruins, blocking the earth spear. Piercing through layer after layer, the soil spear was also being consumed. When a spear pierced through the meditative ruins and into the body of the god of oblivion ruins, it dragged her down to the ground. The Void Master was speechless. This power was too terrifying, wasn't it? That brat was merely an ancestor who could block it. On the Black Mother Tree, the ancient god grabbed the soil spear. Above his head, spears stabbed down. To him, although the earth spear was powerful, his strength was not to be underestimated. If it was before he broke through to the primordial realm, it really wouldn't have been so easy to block, said the ancient god. He looked at Lu Yuan. Fertile earth, this descendant of yours will surpass everyone, including Master. Lu Yuan said proudly, of course. De Chong, it's not too late for you to turn back. The ancient god shook his head. That's exactly why he can't live. We can't do anything to him anymore, but there will always be someone who can deal with him. Lu Yuan frowned. Who? The ancient god did not say anything more. He gripped the soil spear tightly and shook off the other spears that were stabbing down. He leapt towards fertile earth. Our battle is not over yet. Far away, Di Qiong's body surged with divine force, forming an armor-like defense. He threw a punch at the sky, wanting to shatter the soil spears that were stabbing towards him with terrifying power. 1 spear, 2 spears, 3 spears. He had directly shattered 3 spears, but there were still more behind. Lu Yin focused on Di Qiong. Di Qiong dodged in a hurry, but he was still pierced by a soil spear. Around him, the war god's scripture revolved as the spears froze the space. Even Lu Yin's mortal ancestor's world could not break through Di Qiong's scripture. The spears looked exactly the same. The first one could hurt Di Qiong, but the rest could not. They were all frozen by the war god's scripture. Di Qiong gripped the spear that had pierced his body and pulled it out. Blood splattered everywhere as he looked at Lu Yin with a ferocious expression. How could I be killed like this? Even if you want to kill me, you have to do it yourself. Who do you think I am? I am Di Qiong from the Dark Warrior Sky, one of the 3 pillars and 6 boundless Eternals. On the other side, Wu Tian said, since ancient times, very few have dared to attack the entire Eternals. Even we would find it difficult to do so. This boy will definitely surpass every cultivator we know until he reaches a peak that we cannot see. In the distance, Lu Yin stared at Bai Xianer. The rain of soil spears had cleansed the second zone of disaster and shocked the Eternals. It brought more blood and excited the human powerhouses. Lu Yin's strength at this moment was simply shocking. Progenitor Realm. This was Lu Yin at the Progenitor Realm. He had finally taken that step and transformed. But it was still not enough. 4 inner worlds and 1 Progenitor Realm were far from enough. Lu Yin clenched his fists. He would break through all 4 inner worlds to become one. He would become the strongest progenitor since ancient times. I am the progenitor. No other progenitor can challenge me. A few simple words spread through the starry sky, attracting everyone's attention. Lu Yuan laughed, followed by the other human powerhouses. They laughed arrogantly. This was Lu Yin, the path master of the Above Heaven sect. He was the progenitor. No other progenitor can challenge him. He was so domineering. These words not only spread throughout the zone of disaster, but also to the Genesis space, the Hexagon Society, and all the parallel universes in the universe. The transformation of the mortal progenitor realm had given Lu Yin the ability to speak to all parallel universes. These words caused the entire human race to boil over. The progenitor realm was not the end, but Lu Yin had forcefully described it as the end. The Above Heaven sect would usher in an incomparably brilliant era. In Immemorial City, both the humans and the Eternals were silent for a moment. What domineering words! Who is it? So arrogant? I don't know. I hope it's a human who can transmit his voice to Immemorial City. Even you and I can't do that. This person has the right to say that. It must be a human. No need to guess. The person who said this is the current pathmaster of the Above Heaven sect, Lu Yin. Chu Yi walked to the city wall and looked into the distance with a smile. The final battle is not far away. In the second zone of disaster, below Lu Yin, Bai Xianer's eyes shone. Brother Zhou Xian, you are really domineering. Domineering. I admit defeat today. See you next time. Lu Yin's gaze turned cold. You want to run? He took a step forward and waved his hand at the same time. Everything around him became still. Only the soil that turned from illusory to solid turned into a spear and pierced towards Bai Xianer, one spear after another. A rain of red flowers fell from the sky, and the immortal radish flowers bloomed beautifully. The soil spear pierced through the immortal radish flowers and approached Bai Xianer, but she had already disappeared. The immortal radish flowers were sending her off. Lu Yin changed the direction of the soil spear and aimed it at Tianfeng. Tianfeng had wanted to kill him before, and he was very close to the Black Mother Tree. If he didn't act now, when would he? As for Bai Xianer, Lu Yin wasn't surprised that she could escape. This woman wasn't just Bai Xianer, but also Mr. Wei. She had once given Patriarch Lu Tianyi a paper cut during the era of the Above Heaven sect. No one knew the significance of her existence. However, Lu Yin knew that he couldn't kill her right now. She was definitely an expert on the same level as the only true god, Grand Empyrean and Primogenitor. Although he had broken through to Progenitor and had the pride of being able to defeat all progenitors, he wasn't arrogant. Right now he hadn't reached the point where he could kill a bitter adversity realm powerhouse. Moreover, while breaking through to the Progenitor realm had caused a huge commotion, there was one thing that hadn't appeared. A phenomenon. Explorers, enlighters, envoys and half-progenitors were all accompanied by phenomena. It didn't make sense that breaking through to the Progenitor realm didn't have any. Did he have to break through to the Progenitor realm for all four of his inner worlds to have a phenomenon? Or was that a sign that he had truly stepped into the Progenitor realm? However, he could still try his luck against a primordial realm expert, especially Tianfeng. He wasn't the main force. The main force was Xianxia. The earth spear stabbed towards Tianfeng, causing him to constantly tremble. Although he was attacked by Xianxia, he was still able to avoid the earth spear. "Hey, you're called Lu Yin, right?" Xianxia's voice rang out from within Tianfeng's body. Lu Yin looked at Tianfeng. "Yes. Let's have Wu to do it." Lu Yin was confused. The sequence laws are useless against a primordial realm expert. "Of course I know that. Wuda can see through an opponent's weakness. If Wuda does it, I won't be able to coordinate with you," Xianxia growled. The pattern on Tianfeng's body flickered, and Lu Yin felt like his limbs were unable to move. Just like the other experts from before, he couldn't tell whether his body was sealed or if the void was sealed. "Xianxia, you'll definitely die a horrible death. Isn't it better to live in my body?" Tianfeng asked. Xianxia disdainfully replied, "Why do you think I've been hiding in your body all this time? I just wanted to find an opportunity to understand you and eliminate you four pieces of trash. Kid, why don't you go? If you don't have the ability to kill a primordial realm expert, you won't be able to help me. Why don't you go deal with the other enemies?" Although Lu Yin was much stronger, he wasn't strong enough to kill a primordial realm expert. Compared to Lu Yin, Xianxia was more willing to work with Wu Tian. They were too familiar with each other. Lu Yin recovered his freedom and took a step towards Wu Tian. He would switch opponents then. He couldn't kill a primordial realm expert, but Wu Qing and Lu Hao weren't primordial realm experts. In the distance, Wu Tian clearly had the upper hand against Di Qiong. Di Qiong was too heavily injured, coughing up blood with every clash. Lu Yin arrived. "Senior, switch opponents." Wu Tian retreated and smiled at Lu Yin. "I'll leave him to you." Lu Yin nodded. "Don't worry. He won't survive." Chapter 32:19. Wu Tian laughed and headed towards Tianfeng. Looking at the battlefield, there were only a few battles that could decide the outcome of the battle. The ancient gods and Lu Yuan, Tianxia and Lei Zhu, Tianen and Hongyan Mavis and Tianfeng and Xianxia. Lu Yin's previous attack had caused the Eternals to suffer heavy losses. Although many human experts, including Di Zun, Yi Luo and the Forsaken Path, could not participate in the battle. Only the 3 realms and 6 paths could participate. "Wu Tian, don't run." Di Qiong held his spear and stared at Wu Tian with his pupilless eyes. Lu Yin looked at him and said, "Di Qiong, long time no see." Di Qiong stared at Lu Yin and his fear was no less than Wu Tian's. Lu Yin's attack on the entire land of tragedy had elevated him to the level of the 3 realms and 6 paths. "I should have killed you long ago," Di Qiong said word by word. His pupilless eyes were terrifying. Lu Yin looked at him and said, "You can't do it." Then he waved his hand and soil formed into a spear in the void and stabbed towards Di Qiong. The battle god scripture appeared around Di Qiong and froze the spear. Di Qiong held the spear tightly and rushed towards Lu Yin. God's spear. The spear was wrapped in divine power and its power was shocking. It tore through the void and created a long dark border as if it was going to split the land of tragedy. Lu Yin stood still and waved his hand. Pieces of soil appeared and they no longer formed spears. Instead they formed all kinds of weapons such as knives, swords, spears, shields and so on. The battle god scripture could only freeze the same attack and posture, but it could not freeze different weapons. These weapons could be used once. Although it could only be used once, Lu Yin felt that it was enough. The soil formed weapons and smashed towards Di Qiong. Di Qiong's body was pierced again and his blood stained the ground. Half of his body was gone. He raised his head and growled and his heart beat louder and louder. Lu Yin squinted and raised his hand again. This time the soil formed sharp stones of different sizes and stabbed towards Di Qiong. Di Qiong was a top expert who had destroyed the Divine Kingdom and suppressed many experts from the Above Heaven sect in the Land of Eternity. If great ancestor Lu Yuan had not arrived, he could have defeated the Above Heaven sect alone. But now this expert was being suppressed by Lu Yin. Even if he was not severely injured, Lu Yin could still kill Di Qiong. His strength was already transparent, even more so than Feng Bo's. Even the sequence laws were unable to completely block Lu Yin's soil and rocks. With a ping sound, the heart shattered. Immediately after, the head shattered. The earth was silent. Everyone looked over. Another Eternals had lost 3 Highnesses and 6 Boundless, and he had also died at Lu Yin's hands. Lu Yin had killed the Witch Spirit God, the Undying God, and the Corpse God. How was Di Qiong? Who would be next? Di Qiong's headless body slowly fell to the ground. Fresh blood stained the ground. Lu Yin watched silently. Something was wrong, it was too easy. He was sure that he could kill Di Qiong, but it would not be that easy. Di Qiong was full of fighting spirit when Wu Tian was here. He had vowed to fight Wu Tian, but he had killed Di Qiong as soon as Wu Tian had left. Moreover, the divine power had not dissipated. Lu Yin stared at Di Qiong's corpse, and with a flick of his finger, soil appeared in the void once more. This time it was like a stone slab that pressed down on Di Qiong's corpse, intending to crush it. Corpses that had been reduced to dust could no longer be used. Above the Black Mother Tree, the only true God calmly watched. Di Qiong was a very stubborn person. The first time he saw him, he knew that his stubbornness surpassed everything else. At that time, it had not been long since the destruction of the Above Heaven sect. It was not long after the first God's commandment had ended. There were not many experts in the Eternals, and they were far from enough to gather the 3 gods and the 6 gods. No, they could not even gather the 7 gods, let alone the experts of the 6th zone of calamity. He had been looking for talented cultivators to join him, and that was when he had found Di Qiong. The first time he had seen this child, he had been gnawing on bones in a pile of corpses. Those were human bones. His small body was bathed in blood, but he was not afraid at all. He was as calm as a beast that had eaten its fill. Even the only true God, who was used to seeing death, was attracted by that scene. He came to the child and asked him what he was doing. Eating meat. That's a human. Hungry. Why are you here alone? The child looked to the side and saw a well-preserved corpse. Your father. Yes. Why didn't you leave? The child looked at his father's corpse calmly and did not speak. The only true God stepped forward and sized the child up. What are you thinking about? The child replied without hesitation, living. Then come with me. Can you let me live? It's easy to live. It's very difficult. Why? Father can't live. He's too weak. The child raised his head and looked at the only true God. Father said that with Wu Tian's teachings he would become stronger sooner or later. But he has no chance. The child said calmly, it's Father. He trusted the wrong person. The only true God looked at the child with interest. Do you know Wu Tian? No. Wu Tian is a human. The child asked, is he very strong? The only true God smiled. At least he can live. The child was dissatisfied. Father is dead. Wu Tian shouldn't be alive. The only true God laughed. Do you hate Wu Tian? No. It's just that he shouldn't be alive. Weaklings shouldn't be alive. Then you have to deal with him yourself. I will. I won't be a weakling. The only true God looked at the child. If one day you die, what will you do? The child thought for a while. As long as I can move, I'm alive. The only true God looked into the distance. As long as he could move, he was alive. Movement was the only standard that the child believed to be alive. Killing Wu Tian was his obsession. Staying alive was his obsession. He could move. Under the pressure of the soil, Di Qiong's corpse suddenly moved. Half of his body was supported by the remaining arm. His heart was crushed and his head was crushed. Inside his body, divine energy was like a meridian that connected the 2 parts of his body. Lu Yin had seen this scene before. It was the scene of Wu Ling God's death. It was horrifying. Thump, thump, thump. The sound of heartbeats came from Di Qiong's broken heart. At this moment, divine energy formed a new heart. The surface of his body cracked. Divine energy entered his body and a powerful aura shot up to the sky. Lu Yin narrowed his eyes. This was a powerful physical strength. The ancient god, archer god and other experts looked at Di Qiong. The rumors are true. Di Qiong has created a new transformation that surpasses the pupilless transformation. The price is death. On the Black Mother Tree the only true god exclaimed. That child was a man of his words. However, the last transformation of the Corpse King transformation was not the pupilless transformation. It was the martial god transformation. Martial represented his obsession with Wu Tian. God represented divine energy. Only divine energy could create such a transformation. This was the last transformation of the Corpse King transformation. Di Qiong was indeed dead, but his body could still move. As long as he could move, he would not die. With a boom, half of Di Qiong's body rushed toward Lu Yin. The remaining arm reached out to grab Lu Yin. Lu Yin waved his hand and formed a soil spear. However, it was crushed by his arm. Under the pupilless transformation, Di Qiong had turned the tables against Wu Tian. His physical strength was comparable to the zombie gods. At this moment his physical strength had increased tenfold. This was beyond the progenitor realm. Lu Yin did not want to compete with Di Qiong's physical strength. It was impossible. The soil spears were crushed by Di Qiong's arm. Di Qiong bent his legs and rushed forward. He pushed through the void, creating ripples that spread into the distance. The pressure was so oppressive that Lu Yin could not breathe. Lu Yin looked at Di Qiong, who was approaching him rapidly. At this moment, Di Qiong was clearly the most terrifying human weapon. Lu Yin maintained the same speed as Di Qiong. They were 1 meter apart. One retreated while the other chased. Lu Yin could clearly feel the strength of Di Qiong's physical strength. It could even be said that Di Qiong's physical strength had surpassed that of Patriarch Lu Yuan and Hongyan Mavis. In terms of physical strength, no one could be compared to Di Qiong. However, the foundation of this transformation was divine energy. What Lu Yin was least afraid of was divine energy. Lu Yin took out eternal darkness and entered it together with Di Qiong. In the dark space, Di Qiong waved his hand and shook the void to disperse the darkness. The dark hall could not burn him. Even if it did, he was already dead. There was no way to deal with this physical strength. Lu Yin appeared behind Di Qiong and released the starry sky in his heart. The divine star rotated and began to forcefully strip the divine energy from Di Qiong's body. Di Qiong had been killed by Lu Yin. He was determined to kill Lu Yin. At this moment he had lost all rationality. He kept waving his arms trying to catch Lu Yin. Lu Yin's face turned solemn. If he did not have the means to strip the divine energy, he would have to rely on his own strength to deal with Di Qiong. It would be very difficult. Patriarch Lu Yuan might be able to help, but it would be difficult for him to hurt Di Qiong. At the cost of death, Di Qiong performed the last stage of the Corpse King transformation. If the price was not death, Di Qiong would definitely be the most terrifying of the 3 high gods and 6 vast gods. Even the ancient gods could not compare to him. The Corpse King transformation was the most powerful combat technique of the Eternal Tribe. Its strategic value was not inferior to the 3 ultimate skills of the true gods. Lu Yin kept dodging while Di Qiong waved his arms and chased after him. The divine energy in his body kept being stripped away. Lu Yin could even strip the divine energy from Kuang's corpse, let alone Di Qiong. Di Qiong's heartbeat became softer and softer, and his waving movements became slower and slower. Lu Yin could clearly feel that Di Qiong's strength was declining. Finally, Di Qiong stopped moving. Lu Yin heaved a sigh of relief. This time Di Qiong was really dead. He could not imagine what kind of perseverance would allow someone to continue fighting after death. If it were not for the fact that they were in different positions, Lu Yin could not help but admire Di Qiong. In the second zone of calamity, there were fights everywhere, but people's eyes never left that place. When Lu Yin and Di Qiong appeared, everyone's attention was focused on them. Lu Yin faced Di Qiong and then turned to look at the one true god. Behind him, Di Qiong's body collapsed. Chapter 32:20. A moment of brilliance would not last forever. Di Qiong's brilliance was so bright that no one could look at it directly, but it would still disappear. On the Black Mother Tree, the one true god was still calm. After knowing that Lu Yin cultivated divine power, he knew that Di Qiong was no longer a threat to him. The fall of the Eternal's masters was all because of this person. The sky of the 7 gods brought a lot of pressure to the primordial space, but it was far from the despair I felt when I first saw the 6 zones of disaster. But so what? We still made it. Humans are good at creation. Although they have many shortcomings, when faced with the threat of their race, they will unite. The Eternals will lose. Even with the help of the Guardians, you will still lose. Nothing can stop the humans' determination to live. Lu Yin looked at the Black Mother Tree and said slowly. On the Black Mother Tree, the one true God praised, I spent a long time and paid a great price to gather the 3 masters and the 6 heroes, but you killed them one by one. Lu Yin, the 3 masters and the 6 heroes are not as good as you. But too much is easy to break. You will eventually see the truth of this universe. At that time, despair will still engulf you. Humans can live and the Eternals will not destroy them. But you, including your above heaven sect and everyone who supports you, will no longer exist. This is the truth of the universe. Like Di Qiong, you will shine for a time. This era will remember you and the next will forget you. Lu Yin's lips curled up. I won't die so easily. At least I won't die before the Eternals are eradicated. My mission is to open up a path for humans. No matter where this path leads, whether the era remembers me or not, it doesn't matter. As long as someone cares about me while I'm alive, that's enough. Listen to the voices of countless people. They care about me. That's enough. After he finished speaking, the God Catalog appeared above his head. Golden light shone on the land of disaster. Under the puzzled gaze of the crowd, the golden light shone on Hongyan Mavis, and a shadow appeared behind her. Lu Yin's voice sounded, Hongyan Mavis, are you willing to be made a god? Yes, Lu Yin was going to be made a god at this moment. He had once thought of making the masters of the above heaven sect gods, but it was meaningless. Ordinary progenitors would not be of much use on this battlefield. Moreover, the God Catalog must have its limits like the general appointment platform. In that case, it was better to leave it to the true masters. Previously, he didn't have the confidence to become a god, beauty Mavis, of the 3 realms and 6 paths. Being able to defeat the 3 masters and 6 Daoists did not mean that he could defeat the 3 realms and 6 Daoists. There was a big difference between them. Moreover, there was no chance. Now he was confident. There were still many experts from the Eternals on the battlefield. Coupled with the Guardians, the humans seemed to have more experts, but they did not have the upper hand. Even though Di Qiong was dead, they still did not have the upper hand. The only way was to become a god. Forefather Lu Tianyi, Forefather God Sealing, Forefather Desolation, and the rest of the 9 mountains and 8 seas had single-handedly stopped the Eternals and protected the starry sky of trees. Now he wanted to seal the 3 realms and 6 paths of the Tao of Gods and completely crush the Eternals. When he saw this, the ancestor of the past immediately slashed out with his sword. He could not allow Lu Yin to ascend to godhood. Mu Shen blocked the attack and Fei killed Lan Lan with a sneak attack. Mu Shen was free now. Although it was impossible for him to defeat the former ancestor, it should not be a problem for them to stop the former ancestor if they worked together with Mu Shen and Emperor Shang. Unless the former ancestor used his battle prowess at the primordial realm and used his vital energies, there was no reason why they could not keep him busy if Kong Tianzhao could. Hongyan Mavis looked at Lu Yin. I never thought that I would be able to ascend to godhood as well. Little 7, remember, even fertile earth didn't become a god before me. You're the first. I am willing. The shadow moved through the void towards the God Catalog. Tianxi shouted, block it. Tian would have acted even without the reminder, but Wu Tian was even faster. He attacked Tian before Hongyan Mavis could say that she was willing, so Tian could not stop Hongyan Mavis from being sealed. Sealing the 3 realms and 6 paths of the Tao of Gods was something that most people did not even dare to think about. The Lu family had a strong foundation and they had the God Catalog. One person could rule a country and one person could be revered. This was an extremely powerful and even terrifying talent that allowed the Lu family to rule the 5th mainland. However, from the above heaven era until now, the Lu family had relied on these 2 talents to rule the 5th mainland, but they had not surpassed the 5th mainland. No matter how many talents there were, they could not compare to the change in quality. Even if Lu Yin had 100 progenitors, they could not compare to Hongyan Mavis. Now a qualitative change had occurred. Lu Yin had sealed the 3 realms and 6 paths of the Tao of Gods, which meant that he alone could use the strength of the 3 realms and 6 paths of the Tao of Gods. Combined with his own strength, no one knew what kind of power he had. Hongyan Mavis' shadow appeared on the God Catalog as expected. Lu Yin exhaled, but the golden light did not fade. Hongyan Mavis' shadow walked out and attacked Tian under Lu Yin's command. Hongyan Mavis smiled bitterly. This is the first time I'm working with myself against an enemy. At that moment the golden light enveloped Wu Tian. This was Wu Tian's own request. When Wu Tian attacked Tianen, he had asked Lu Yin to seal him as well. Lu Yin had only planned to seal Hongyan Mavis, but since Wu Tian had asked, he was naturally willing. Countless people watched in shock. Wu Tian, are you willing to be sealed? His voice resounded throughout the doomed domain. Wu Tian looked up. I am willing. The Forgotten Ruins God Void Master Su Wei Yiro and the others were shocked. Consecutively sealing the 3 realms and 6 paths of the Tao of Gods was the rhythm of a breakthrough. If Ancestor Lu Yuan had not reached the primordial realm, he would have been sealed as well. Wu Tian's shadow moved towards the God Catalogue. Tianxi's gaze was cold. Now the humans had gained 2 more experts, absolute experts. Zhou voice rang out from Tianen's body. Kaihong Wuda, you're really ruthless. That kid is Fertile Earth's descendant, right? Fertile Earth wanted to seal us as a god back then, but we scolded him. Now you're being sealed by his descendant? Wu Tian smiled. He's not Fertile Earth, but if possible, Fertile Earth is willing to be sealed by him. Lu Yin watched as Wu Tian's shadow appeared on the god sealing catalogue and walked out. Lu Yin stepped forward and charged towards Tianfeng. Senior Wu Tian, leave Tianfeng to me. Wu Tian nodded. Be careful. You must bring Jialan out. This was also why Lu Yin wanted to deal with Tianen first. Jialan Jilua was in his body. Even if he could not kill Tianen, he had to at least rescue Jialan Jilua. Otherwise Jialan Jilua would definitely die. The God Catalogue was the same as the Commander Appointment Platform. It could not use the sequence laws of the sealed person, but against a primordial realm expert, it did not matter whether the sequence laws existed or not. It was useless anyway. Lu Yin had Hongyan Mavis, Wu Tian himself and Jialan Zhou. If they could not rescue Jialan Zhou, then the others would be useless. As for Wu Tian, he went to support Jiang Feng. Jiang Feng faced off against Tianxi. He was under too much pressure. If not for the turbid treasure, he would have been defeated long ago. After all, his opponent was a primordial realm expert who was known as the strongest of the 4 protectors. Hongyan Mavis continued to deal with Tianen. This time Yiro and the Forsaken Path were helping him. The human situation had been reversed. With 2 more 3 realms and 6 Daos, the situation was completely different. Beneath the Black Mother Tree, the Grand Empyrean watched as if he was looking at the above heavens sect. Back then the primogenitor had suppressed everything, and the 3 realms and 6 Daos had dominated the world. He had been invincible in the 9 mountains and 8 seas. That era was called Inception. Now if they could defeat the Eternals and the 4 protectors in this battle, they would be sealed as a god. This era would be called Lu Yin. Nothing could stop the humans at this moment. At this moment, Lu Yin forgot about the blood-red figure that had appeared during the battle in the Mirage domain. He forgot about that omnipotent existence that weighed down on his heart. He forgot about everything. He only wanted to defeat the Eternals and the 4 protectors so that he could give this era an explanation. In this era he had to do something for the future generations. Hongyan Mavis' figure punched out at Sky Seal. On the other side, Wu Tian's figure stabbed out with a spear that pierced through the void, surrounded by the war god's scripture. Lu Yin raised his hand, and the soil transformed into a spear that stabbed out like raindrops. Sky Seal was an oval-shaped source box that gave off a natural feeling. In the face of Lu Yin's attack, the patterns on its surface flickered. Lu Yin paused and Hongyan Mavis and Wu Tian's figures froze at the same time. Kid, this is a Sky Seal array. Let me tell you, Sky Seal is not a source box but a source box array, Jialan Jiluo's voice rang out. Lu Yin was stunned. A source box array? There are many strange life forms in the universe and source box arrays have their own consciousness. It's not impossible for the array to reach its current level. Back then Master was trapped by this guy's source box array and lost both of his hands. I chased after him out of the primordial space, but in the end I was sealed inside his body. Be careful. After so many years his source box array has evolved, and I don't even know how many there are, Jialan Jilua warned. Sky Seal's voice rang out. Jialan Jilua, I admire you. You've suffered the torture of being skinned alive and disfigured, but you haven't gone mad. No matter what, I won't be killed by a piece of trash like you, Jialan Jilua said with disdain. Lu Yin's eyes narrowed. Skinned alive and disfigured, he looked at Sky Seal with a bone-chilling gaze. He had heard of Xianxia's legend. The ancestor had named her Floret because she loved beauty more than anyone else. She would take care of every single strand of hair, and in that era she was synonymous with beauty. However, she had gone through the most painful calamity in the world, and this had all been brought to her by Sky Seal. The four guardians had surrounded and killed the ancestor, and Sky Grace had killed Desolate Ancestor once. Sky Blessing had tried to exterminate the humans of this universe, so all four guardians deserved to die. The Sky Seal array is a transformation of Sky Seal's sourcebox array. Cannot be seen, but it can seal any expert. However, it has two flaws. First, it cannot be too far away or else it will be unable to control the array. Otherwise, Sky Seal will be able to control all the humans on the battlefield. The second flaw is that it must be facing you. Thank you for your support, brothers. Thank you. I really can't take it anymore. I've never updated so frequently before. It's too sudden and it's the end of the year, so there are still many things to do. Brothers, please understand and slow down. Thank you. Chapter 32:21. A sourcebox had a front. Lu Yin was stunned. How do you tell if it's facing me? What's the pattern? That's right. Tian Feng's body has a pattern engraved on it. As long as its back is facing the pattern, it will spread in 3 directions. Lu Yin continued, so there's only one way to attack it. Tian Feng was aggrieved and furious. It had never felt like its weakness had been exposed right in front of its face. Moreover, it had been Xianxia who had told the humans about Xianxia and Tianen's abilities. Otherwise, the humans would not have been able to stop them. Hateful, hateful. Lu Yin raised a hand and soil spears appeared around Tian Feng from all directions, almost completely surrounding him. He clenched his fingers and the soil spears pierced forward. He once again sensed the linear sky array. Without Lu Yin's control, the soil spears merely maintained their momentum and did not possess much power. However, Lu Yin had done this to create an opportunity for Hongyan Mavis and Wu Tian. Red Beauty Mavis's grass also surrounded Tian Feng in the form of a shadow, almost blocking his line of sight. Wu Tian's martial god scripture was actually ineffective against Tian Feng's linear sky array. However, he used the soil spear as a tool to find Tian Feng's back and thrust it forward. Tian Feng spun and restrained Wu Tian. At that moment, Lu Yin was able to move because Wu Tian was facing him, which meant that Lu Yin had appeared behind Tian Feng. Lu Yin controlled the soil spear to separate from Wu Tian's hand and thrust it towards Tian Feng. Tian Feng's linear sky array could trap living creatures, but it could not stop this soil spear. With a clang, the soil spear viciously pierced Tian Feng's body. Tian Feng swayed and roared in anger. Mere humans dare to challenge the heavens? You're too impudent. Humans should have gone extinct long ago. Be careful, it's about to activate the two-realm disintegration formation. This uses 2 parallel spacetime as the eye of the formation and overlaps with each other to instantly envelop everything. It's equivalent to letting you enter the eye of the formation and wiping out the parallel spacetime to erase everything. Xianxia's voice rang out as she simultaneously attacked Tian Feng from within. She had helped Lu Yin escape in this manner, which had given him the opportunity to enter the roots of the Black Mother Tree. Although Xianxia had not revealed herself in this battle, her contributions were enormous. If not for her, Tian Feng would have been unstoppable. Tian Feng was enraged. Jialan, you're courting death. I'll definitely let you die a miserable death. I'll peel off your flesh piece by piece and pull out your bones for all humans to see. Jialan, Jialan. Lu Yin's gaze was gloomy as he continuously brandished his spear of soil to attack the heavenly seal. The runes on Tian Feng's body flickered with light. It was clear that Lu Yin's attack was effective. This was an attack that was enough to kill 3 pillars and 6 fastnesses. Although Tian Feng was a primordial realm expert, he still could not ignore it. Lu Yin felt that he should be able to shatter the sourcebox with his repeated attacks. And each time Tian Feng wanted to release the 2-realm minute array, it was destroyed by Xianxia time and time again. Finally, it couldn't take it anymore and released a monstrous murderous aura. Lu Yin's eyes widened. What's this? Fiendish qi emanated from the pattern on Tian Feng's body and instantly filled the sky above the 6 regions of calamity. Everyone who saw this scene felt their hearts skip a beat. Mu Feng frowned. What a terrifying baleful aura. Who could possess such a boundless baleful aura? Although the baleful aura came from Tian Feng's body, it didn't belong to him. It was merely released by him. Jiang Feng turned his head and looked at Tian Feng, gripping his sword hilt tightly. This baleful aura was not easy to deal with. Victorious battle, the Celestial looked up at the sky and gripped his golden staff tightly. His blood constantly burned as he circulated the victorious battle technique. This baleful aura stirred up his battle intent. The arrow god in front of him had become increasingly dispirited after Di Qiong's death. The Celestial was basically suppressing the arrow god, but the arrow god just couldn't die. Jialanjiluo's voice rang out in Lu Yin's ears. I can't stop the three-terminal array. The three-terminal array relies on 3 strands of baleful aura to form the eye of the array, and they are sealed within the pattern on Tianfeng's body. I can't stop it, so you have to be careful. The 3 strands of baleful aura come from Sha. Sha was one of the 9 mountains and 8 seas of our above-heaven era. He entered the cultivation world with a baleful aura that killed millions of enemy soldiers, and he could never avoid the word kill. Although he wasn't very strong and couldn't compare to us, he had a lot of baleful aura, so much that it was terrifying. The 2nd strand of baleful aura comes from Chuhiai, who is also the Grim Reaper. Lu Yin raised a brow. The Grim Reaper? After the first mainland was destroyed, Master went missing. I chased after Tianfeng, but I was trapped by him. At that time, the countless astral beasts of the 4th mainland rebelled, and Chuhiai used his own strength to wipe out dozens of races, causing the heavens to bleed. Chuhiai fought with him in anger, and at that time, Chuhiai's body was filled with the baleful aura of the astral beasts. Tianfeng ambushed Chuhiai and took away most of the baleful aura. The 3rd strand of baleful aura comes from the 4 protectors Tianfa. It punishes on behalf of the heavens and kills countless people. Most of the people it kills are humans. The 3-terminal array uses 3 strands of baleful aura to form a killing attack, and it's equivalent to a battle technique with a concept. You have to be careful. Tianfeng growled. So what if I understand it? The 3-terminal array uses absolute power to kill. Even if you study it for countless years, if you can't stop it, you can't stop it. Die human. With that, the baleful aura split into 3 strands. They didn't interfere with each other, but they also flowed in a strange way and gradually merged together. All of a sudden, the baleful aura was gaseous. It seemed dizzying, but it was still normal. The baleful aura of the Grim Reaper was made up of astral beasts of various shapes and sizes. Everyone could hear their howls and roars. As for the baleful aura of Tianfa, it was mostly made up of people. They were all grief-stricken and unwilling. It was a terrifying sight. The 3 strands of baleful aura gradually merged into a trident. It took shape in the sky and faced Lu Yin. Lu Yuan's face changed drastically. This power was troublesome. The ancient gods stared into the distance. It really was a primordial realm expert after all. Even he did not want to receive the trident formed from baleful aura head-on. Lu Yuan moved towards Lu Yin, but he was stopped by the ancient god. De Chong, piss off. Fertile Earth, the outcome of this battle will determine life and death. Why are you in such a hurry? You're looking to die. Lu Tianyi wanted to help Lu Yin as well, but if Lu Yin could not stop it, he could not stop it either. He could only use the Divine Seal catalog again and have the Desolate Ancestor walk towards Lu Yin. He wanted to use the Desolate Ancestor to block the trident. Wu Tian and Hongyan Mavis's expressions changed. The 3-terminal formation was extraordinarily powerful. It would be very difficult for anyone below the primordial realm to receive it head-on. Kid, let's go. Don't take it head-on. Even if you do, you'll be heavily injured. It's not worth it, Jialanjiluo reminded. Lu Yin looked up at the huge trident. It seemed like it could pierce through the 2nd domain of disaster. It was like a god's weapon. However, he smiled. Why should I take it head-on? Senior, I have another identity that you might not know. I'm a lockbreaker. No matter how powerful the 3-terminal formation was, it was still a sourcebox array. Since it was a sourcebox array, it could be unlocked. Lu Yin's lockbreaking ability was quite impressive. It was quite powerful. With his current strength, his lockbreaking ability could be considered the highest among humans. Although Gu Yan was very experienced in lockbreaking, he definitely could not unlock the 3-terminal formation. He was too weak and could not withstand the danger of the sourcebox. However, Lu Yin was different. Furthermore, he had a unique advantage when it came to lockbreaking, which was the aura of death. One of the 3 auras came from the death god. The sourcebox's aura seemed to be an aura of death, but it actually contained an aura of death. In other words, 1/3 of the sourcebox's aura would not affect him, and that was enough. Lu Yin faced the trident head-on. Tianfeng coldly said, "You're courting death." After speaking, the trident slammed down. The entire second domain of disaster shook, and even the Black Mother Tree swayed. This terrifying attack was something that even the sole true god would be wary of. Lu Yin took a step forward and determined the location of the death god's aura. He then entered alone. The trident slowly descended and Lu Yin disappeared. Tianfeng was stunned. How was this possible? The three-terminal formation had been directed at Lu Yin, but the trident had not reacted at all when Lu Yin had entered it alone. Impossible. Zhao Xian did not understand either. However, Lu Tianyi suddenly thought of the death god's aura. Shao Qi had cultivated the death god's power. Lu Yin's lock-breaking ability allowed him to tell that the aura belonged to the death god. Even if the sourcebox's aura fused together, it could not escape his lock-breaking ability. He was using lock-breaking to fight against the three-terminal formation. In the first domain of disaster, beneath the divine power lake, Hui Wu looked up at the three-terminal formation. It was a decent sourcebox array, but it was still not enough. In the sky above the second domain of disaster, the trident slowly descended, but its size was shrinking. Countless people were dumbfounded by this scene. Lu Yin was constantly shuttling back and forth while the trident continued to shrink. No matter how one looked at it, it seemed like he was absorbing the trident. Indeed, Lu Yin was absorbing it. He was absorbing the aura of death. Aura of death was a concept within an intent realm. Some people could frighten others with a single glance, and such an aura did exist in abundance. However, in order to materialize this aura, one had to rely on one's own cultivation. This was why Tianfeng had said that this was an intent realm battle technique. The death god's aura of death relied on aura of death, and Lu Yin's lock-breaking method was to absorb that aura. He did not plan on using lock-breaking to break the three-terminal formation, as that would take too much time and effort. He only needed to absorb the aura of death and make the death god's aura disappear. Then the three-terminal formation would naturally cease to exist. Tianfeng stared blankly as the runes on his body flickered. It was obvious that he was not calm at all. The three-terminal formation was a top-notch attack, but it had actually disappeared just like that. Lu Yuan relaxed. Shao Qi's cultivation was diverse and complex, and he had an advantage in the early stages. However, as time passed, more and more people would abandon part of their cultivation and focus on a single path. Lu Yuan, on the other hand, continued to cultivate in a variety of paths, and they would become increasingly complex until all paths returned to one. This was his own path and no one else had walked it before. The path of the progenitors had only been one of the paths. Now the benefits had appeared. He was very proficient in the death god's power, and he could directly absorb the aura of death. Breaking the three-terminal formation would not be difficult. To do this, one would need to cultivate the aura of death as well as have extremely high lock-breaking attainments. Lu Yin had both of these requirements. Ah, Tianfeng, you've helped this kid. He seems to have cultivated Chuhiai's power and absorbed all of his aura. The three-terminal formation is gone. Ah, look at that trident, haha. Chapter 32:22. It wasn't just Galan Zhilo, many others laughed as well. Even Mu Ji couldn't help but smile. The current trident was a little strange. Originally, there were 3 sharp spikes, but one of them seemed to have melted and the other 2 were bent. It didn't look like a majestic trident, but more like a rake with a few broken spikes. Everyone's laughter enraged Tianfeng and he roared, "Humans, all of you deserve to die. All of you deserve to die." The trident suddenly shattered and Lu Yin charged out from within. He waved his hand and sent a spear of earth towards Tianfeng. "You're the one who deserves to die. All of you guardians deserve to die." Hongyan Mavis and Wu Tian's phantoms cooperated with each other, and the earth spears pierced the heavenly seal, producing sounds of collision. Around Tianfeng, the void constantly distorted and flickered while other images appeared. This was the two-realm dust array. Tianfeng had not given up and he wanted to use the array to drag Lu Yin in and destroy him in the same way that he had destroyed spacetime. This method was similar to the 9 Stars reboot. It forcefully dragged a living being into a parallel spacetime and used a method to erase the parallel spacetime to destroy the living being. Galan Zhilua continuously interfered, making it difficult for Tianfeng to use it. Tianxi's face sank as the guardians had never felt so sullen before. They had already laid all their cards on the table and wanted to ally with the Eternals to deal with the humans, but the humans had actually gained the upper hand. They had to win this battle or the guardians would no longer have their positions in this universe. They might even be hunted down by the humans. This was something that neither Tianxi nor the universe behind him could tolerate. When he thought of this, he looked at the sole true god, and the sole true god looked over as well. So far Tianfeng had used 3 sourcebox arrays, and this was definitely not his limit. At the very least, he had once used a sourcebox array to seal the progenitor's hands and force the progenitor to sever them. Galan Jilua did not know what that sourcebox array was, and she had not seen the battle between the guardians and the progenitor. On the other side, Tianxi's entire body was enveloped in flames as he brandished his sword, displaying a terrifying strength that far surpassed his previous strength. The heavens and the earth shook, and even the dark mother tree swayed. Lu Yin looked over and was left speechless. Even the Thunder Lord and Wu Tian could not stop Tianxi. Their attacks had vanished and were completely useless against him. The Thunder Lord was someone who had dared to attack the sole true god, and Tianxi was a primordial realm powerhouse. And the primordial realm. And primordial realm. The 3. B. But. B. The. T. Loot. This. Lu Tianyi shouted and charged toward Tianxi. The golden light of the deification catalog instantly enveloped half of the second disaster zone. So it's you, the one true god said calmly. I've done a lot for the Eternals. It's time for me to switch sides. Black Wuxian said in a low voice. The sole true god did not say anything else, but the killing intent in his eyes was enough to drown out the universe. There was definitely a human spy among the 7 sky gods. He had never been able to find who it was. He had suspected the sorcerer god in the past, but the sorcerer god had died in battle for the Eternals. The undying god had also died in battle. The forgetful ruins god had incited the Wang family generation after generation for the Eternals. Wang Xiaoyu had directly caused the 6th and 5th mainlands to go to war, so she could not be a traitor. As for the corpse god, she was not human at all. The ancient god had been controlled, and Bai Wuxian had the list of Eternals. Then there was only one Black Wuxian left. He had never thought that it would really be Black Wuxian. Since Black Wuxian had been exposed, he followed Lu Tianyi and attacked Tianxi. Suddenly 4 experts surrounded Tianxi. The Thunder Lord and Wu Tian were all from the 3 realms 6 Daoists, and Lu Tianyi was not much weaker than them. Lu Tianyi's divine seal catalog allowed him to borrow the strength of Progenitor Qin and Progenitor Ku. To a certain extent, Lu Tianyi was already at the 3 realms 6 Daoist level. At the very least, no one could easily defeat him. As for Black Wuxian, he was a 7 sky gods expert and was one of the 3 masters and 6 Daoists. In other words, 4 3 realms 6 Daoists were attacking Tianxi. No matter how powerful Tianxi was, he would not be able to intervene in other battles. This was a heaven-sent opportunity. Lu Yin raised a hand and the soil turned into a spear that shot towards Tianfeng. The diagram on the sourcebox's surface dimmed significantly. Senior Jialon, what is the sourcebox array that Tianfeng used to attack the progenitor? Lu Yin asked. Jialon Jilua was helpless. I don't know either. After so many years, Tianfeng only used the 3-terminal array. Lu Yin's expression sank. Since that's the case, then force him out. Tianfeng constantly used the skyward array, but it was not very useful. Lu Yin could rely on Hongyan Mavis and Wu Tian's strength to surround and attack from all sides. There would always be one side that would hit Tianfeng, making it difficult for him to dodge. A primordial realm cultivator could use the laws to avoid close combat, but Lu Yin was not using the laws. He was the only person who had not even comprehended the laws of the sequence, but he could still fight against a primordial realm cultivator. To a certain extent, he could be considered a primordial realm cultivator's nemesis. However, Tianfeng's weakness was extremely obvious. He was not a living creature, so he could not comprehend the laws of the sequence. It was already quite difficult for him to avoid close combat. Without the laws of the sequence, and Lu Yin was not using the laws of the sequence, this meant that Tianfeng had no advantage in this battle against Lu Yin. After the sourcebox array was destroyed, Tianfeng was completely at Lu Yin's mercy. Jialon Jilua had made Tianfeng completely transparent, and he had also restricted the use of the 2 realms disintegration array. For various reasons, Tianfeng had to constantly endure Lu Yin's attacks. Heaven's grace was unable to support Tianfeng and the abandoned path. Although Yi Ruo had not reached the level of the Three Realms' 6 Daos, he was still a relatively powerful expert who had comprehended the laws of the sequence. With Hongyan Mavis' assistance he could fight against Heaven's grace. Heaven's grace was the weakest of the 4 protectors in terms of combat. This was the information that Jialan Jilua had gathered. Among the Eternals, the Ancestor was blocked by the Wood God, and the others, the Ancient God was blocked by Lu Yuan, and the Arrow God was blocked by Celestial Champion. They no longer had any experts who could support Tianfeng. Lu Yin was going to kill a second protector today. Just as the soil spear was about to strike Tianfeng, 6 specks of inception dust appeared in front of Lu Yin. They circled around and collided with a speck of light. The speck of light was very small, so small that Lu Yin could not even see it. If not for the sudden appearance of the 6 specks of inception dust, that speck of light would definitely have struck his head. What was that? In the distance, Wu Tian, who was attacking Tianxi, suddenly warned, "There's an attack. It can't be seen. It's extremely microscopic." Lu Yin's gaze turned cold. Microscopic? Suddenly, a broken blade appeared in front of Lu Yin and slashed towards his neck. It had come from the abandoned path. Lu Yin instinctively dodged, but the abandoned path did not pursue him. The abandoned path was at a loss and warned, "Behind you." Lu Yin used the reverse step to parallel time and everything around him froze. He circled around the abandoned path and saw a blade coming from wood carving. Lu Yin flicked his finger and the soil expanded like a balloon to protect him. The next moment Yi Ju swept past and exploded with her sequence laws. Black lines came from all directions trying to imprison him. However, the black lines were unable to break through the soil's protection. This was the protection of the mortal ancestors' world. Finally, a shadow enveloped Lu Yin. He looked up and saw the sovereign's fist land. There was a loud bang, but Lu Yin remained in his original position while the sovereign was forced back several steps. In that short moment, Lu Yin had withstood the attacks of 5 powerhouses, including the abandoned path, Yi Ju, wood carving, Emperor Shang, and He Wuxian. It was impossible for all 5 of them to betray him at the same time. There was only one possibility: they had all been controlled. The abandoned path and the others stared blankly. Within the sovereign, Emperor Shang was terrified. How could this be? Even further away, wood carving was holding his blade. In front of him was a block of wood that had coincidentally blocked the ancestor's sword. He looked in Lu Yin's direction. Why had he attacked his junior brother? It's a change in the microscopic world. Be careful. It's an absolute powerhouse, Wu Tian warned. He Wuxian's expression darkened. It's Bai Wuxian. Lu Yin's expression grew solemn. Bai Wuxian had finally appeared. She was the most mysterious of the 7 sky gods and rarely made a move. So far, only Bai Wuxian and the last of the 3 elders of the Eternals had not shown up. The others had all shown up either dead or injured. Bai Wuxian held the Eternity List, which contained all of the human race's spies. Her appearance meant that the Eternals were truly in danger. However, the Eternity List was not very valuable. How many spies had been uncovered over the years? Lu Yin had killed almost all of the Eternals' spies in the Genesis space. As for the 6-party society's spies, Lu Yin had captured some and killed some. Especially when Lu Yin had been in the Mirage domain. In order to use the 6-party society to suppress the Above Heaven sect, the Eternals had deliberately exposed nearly 100 spies, including a progenitor like Wu Hen. This wave of active exposure had almost wiped out all of their spies in the 6-party society. After all, even Yao Lan was a spy of the Eternals. She was also a progenitor. It was not easy for the Eternals to develop so many spies, including so many progenitors. Now, how many names were left on the Eternity List? Now the greatest threat to Lu Yin was not the spies, but Bai Wuxian herself. Bai Wuxian had become one of the 7 sky gods and one of the 3 elders and 6 boundless, not because she had developed spies, but because of her own strength. Lu Tianyi had fought with Bai Wuxian before and she was very powerful. The scene just now also proved that Bai Wuxian definitely had the power to change the situation on the battlefield. Tianfeng was finally able to catch his breath. Lu Yin did not attack him anymore. He remembered that light spot just now. That must be Bai Wuxian's power. It had actually changed the minds of so many experts in an instant. This was troublesome. Bai Wuxian did not appear, and the abandoned passerby and the others looked at each other, not knowing what to do. Continue, Lu Yin ordered. The abandoned passerby and the others attacked according to their original strategy, but then, a huge shadow appeared in front of Lu Yin. It was a sovereign. Emperor Shang had changed his mind again and attacked Lu Yin. Chapter 32:23. Lu Yin stood tall in the sky, allowing Emperor Shang's fist to land on him. Streams of light shuttled around him and he looked back at the time. He wanted to see what form Bai Wuxian would take to attack. But he was disappointed. He really couldn't see Bai Wuxian's form when he attacked. Black Wuxian's voice rang out. White Wuxian is very small. The sequence law she comprehended is small. It's infinitely small. It's so small that any matter visible to the naked eye in the human world is like the universe to her. You can't see her no matter what. If you want to deal with her, you have to have the ability to beat her out. Other than that, she also has the 8-front formation. Every single one of the diagrams can trap an expert of the same level. Don't get trapped by her 8-front formation. Lu Yin felt a headache coming on. Any expert at the level of the 7 sky gods would be extremely difficult to deal with, and he had no idea where the one true god had found so many experts. To be honest, if he had known about the Eternals from the beginning and knew that the Eternals had the 7 sky gods, the 3 pillars, the 6 boundless regions, the 6 regions of calamity and countless experts, he might not have made an enemy of such a powerful behemoth. Perhaps he would have been tempted by He Wuxian's invitation. Even a Grand Empyrean would feel despair and would be willing to sacrifice everything in exchange for the 6 paths of reincarnation realm, which was the only way to defeat a true god. How could Lu Yin, who had just embarked on the path of cultivation, not feel despair? A person's beliefs and willpower were developed step by step, not at birth. If Lu Yin hadn't gone through countless life and death battles such as unifying the inner verse and outer verse, the Day-Night Clan, the Neoverse, the Cosmic Tree Society and the Hexagon Society, he wouldn't have had the determination to face off against such a large number of Eternals. Fortunately, he walked out. No matter how unsolvable Bai Wuxian's ability was, there would always be a way to deal with it. Otherwise, why would she want to develop spies? Wouldn't it be easier to deal with the human experts alone? Tianfeng still had to fight, and Bai Wuxian was unable to affect Lu Yin. He could only affect the abandoned path in Yiruo. Lu Yin observed again and again, trying to find traces of Bai Wuxian's actions. Unfortunately, he failed every time. Not only that, but because the venerable sovereign was controlled by Bai Wuxian again and again, the ancestor of the past found an opportunity to kill him. The huge venerable sovereign was cut in half at the waist, exposing Emperor Shang. The moment Emperor Shang, who was just an ordinary person, was exposed to the 2nd domain of calamity, let alone participating in the battle, he even found it difficult to breathe. This was especially so when there were all sorts of harmful substances in the 2nd domain of calamity. It didn't matter to cultivators and zombie kings, but it was impossible for ordinary people to adapt. Emperor Shang looked at the dark sky and the distorted stars. He wanted to reunite the sovereign, but it was already impossible. Even venerable sovereigns who possessed the strongest defense couldn't withstand a single strike from the ancestor. The wooden carving appeared beside Emperor Shang, wanting to take him away. Unfortunately, Emperor Shang had only appeared in the 2nd calamity region for 2 seconds before he breathed his last. Even before he died, he was still staring at the sky. He had never thought that a venerable sovereign would be cut in half. Lu Yin exhaled. This was already one of the most magnificent battles in human history, and Emperor Shang's sacrifice was within expectations. Anyone else's sacrifice was possible, including himself. Emperor Shang was only the first, and soon after Yi Luo was also controlled by Bai Wuxian. She did not attack Lu Yin, but rather she charged into the battlefield where Wu Tian and the others were attacking Tianxi. She faced Tianxi's attack head-on. Yi Luo was not at the level of 3 realms and 6 realms. If he was hit by Tianxi, he would definitely die. That flame and that sword seemed to have been deified. They became brighter and brighter in Yi Luo's eyes. His sequence rules were dissipating and he could not get close to Tianxi. He was completely exposed to Tianxi's power. The sky was falling and the earth was sinking. The flames engulfed Yi Wu. Yi Wu felt his body was burning, just like the corpses he had dissected. How many corpses had he dissected to study the symbiosis of corpses? Those corpses would eventually be incinerated. He had seen it too many times and he always thought that he would be incinerated one day. And that day had finally arrived. His only concern was his disciple. He felt the pain of his skin and organs being incinerated, but it only lasted for an instant. He did not feel anything at all. He hoped for reincarnation. This life had been too bitter. A small boat appeared in front of him. A boat? Would a person have a boat after they died? Clearly not, as this was a ray of light. Lu Yin used the ray of light to reverse for a second. Beside Yi Wu, Wu Tian and Jiang Feng attacked at the same time. One spear and one sword stabbed towards Yi Wu's front, while the other slashed towards Yi Wu's back. They surrounded Yi Wu, using absolute strength to break through all the sequence particles. They reached the absolute vacuum of the cultivation world and unleashed the beginning of the universe. No attack could surpass the beginning of the universe. Even if Bai Wuxian existed in a microscopic world that humans could not see, as long as he could unleash the beginning of the universe, he would be able to hit her. It was impossible for her to hide in a world that was even more microscopic than the beginning of the universe. Otherwise, she would not be a progenitor but an eternal powerhouse. This was a way to break through to the primordial realm. Only those in the 3 realms and 6 realms could do it. However, as long as she did not breathe in that breath, she would not be able to break through to the primordial realm. Lu Yin, Wu Tian and Jiang Feng worked together to knock Bai Wuxian out from Yi Wu's side in that moment. Bai Wuxian could control multiple experts at the same time. This was not because she could create clones, but because she was so fast that she could cover the entire battlefield in an instant. As a result, she could control everyone in an instant. Wu Tian and Jiang Feng's attacks could also knock her out, as it was impossible for her to give up on Yi Wu. She wanted the human experts to die one by one. Beside Yi Wu, the space distorted and a white speck of light appeared. Lu Yin's eyes widened. He pressed down with one hand and the soil was crushed, pressing down on an area of space. Bai Wuxian could no longer hide in the microscopic world. Wu Tian's attack was definitely not weak. Her sequence laws would definitely be dispersed and she would not be able to reform them in a short period of time. This attack was more vicious than any of Wu Tian's attacks against Xianxia. Faced with Lu Yin's pressure, a white world appeared around the white speck of light. Bai Shan and Bai Shui moved towards the ground. Boom! The space shook and Wu Tian stabbed his spear towards the white mountains and water again. Xianxia blocked the attack and knocked away Wu Tian's spear. Wu Tian stared at Xianxia's sword and hurriedly pulled away. Jiang Feng slashed out with his sword, and the black-purple substance sent Yi Wu flying with great force. From the beginning to the end, Yi Wu had not interfered with the battle at all. He was like a marionette. He had almost been burned, but he had been saved and thrown out of the battlefield. This was the pinnacle of the battlefield. Even sequence laws powerhouses couldn't interfere. Be careful. Jialan Jilua called out. Lu Yin suddenly moved to the side, but there was nothing there. He suddenly raised his head and before he knew it, the 3 strands of fiendish qi had formed once more. They fell down as tridents. Lu Yin frowned. The 3-terminal formation was useless against him. Tianfeng naturally knew this, especially since he had absorbed so much death qi. The 3-terminal formation was nowhere near as powerful as before. However, he was currently dealing with Bai Wuxian, so the 3-terminal formation was useful. At the very least it could distract him. Beneath the ground, Bai Shan and Bai Shui were constantly being crushed, but there was an endless stream of them. They appeared and merged. This was not Lu Yin's first time encountering Bai Shan and Bai Shui. Back then, Bai Wuxian had used his half-progenitor avatar to unleash Bai Shan and Bai Shui at the inner world level, which could melt any creature. At that time, Lu Yin had only thought that Bai Shan and Bai Shui were a type of substance or power. Now he could see that they were creatures. They were all very small creatures from the microscopic world and they formed Bai Shan and Bai Shui. If he had not broken through to the progenitor realm and possessed the mortal ancestors' world, he would not have been able to see through them. The Bai Shan and Bai Shui were made up of white microscopic creatures. These microscopic creatures had cultivated to a certain level in their world, and they had joined forces to help Bai Wuxian form his ancestors' world. What Lu Yin had seen before was not being melted, but rather being obliterated by these creatures. Melting and obliterating were 2 completely different concepts. However, although Bai Wuxian's ancestors' world was mystical, it could not withstand the suppression of the land. At this moment, the land formed by the mortal ancestors' world was even more powerful than the land that covered the heart of the universe. It was at the same level as when Lu Yin had first used the overturning sky palm to kill Fengbo. Bai Wuxian and Fengbo were both 3 masters and 6 heroes. If Lu Yin could kill Fengbo, he could also kill Bai Wuxian. As for the 3-terminal formation, Black Wuxian made his move. Black lines covered the sky and turned into a black net that trapped the trident. Little 7, leave Bai Wuxian to me. The general appointment platform crashed into the Bai Shan and Bai Shui, and Lu Tianyi blocked the land. Lu Yin took a step forward and continued to attack Tian Feng. Black Wuxian continued to attack Tianxi. Black Wuxian looked at Lu Yin deeply. Since I've been exposed, there's no turning back. You better kill Tian Feng or we might not win this battle. Lu Yin's eyes were cold as he rushed into the trident. The same thing happened again. Lu Yin absorbed the death energy from the trident and broke the 3-terminal formation. As soon as he left the 3-terminal formation, a strange power appeared in Lu Yin's hands and feet. It turned into chains that wrapped around his hands and feet. Zhao Xian was shocked. That's it. Be careful. Unfortunately, her warning was too late. Tian Feng was excited. 4 locks formation. Kid, you can't escape. Lu Yin tried to break the 4 locks, but they locked his 4 limbs and did not restrict his strength. It was a strange feeling. However, the more he tried, the tougher the locks became. His heart sank and he looked at Tian Feng. I'm using my own strength to lock myself. Tian Feng praised, you're very smart. No wonder you can fight a primordial realm expert with just the strength of a progenitor. Not bad, you're using your strength to lock yourself. I've been observing your strength since the beginning of the battle. You have 4 types of strength. First, your physical strength. Your physical strength is extremely strong, and you can fight Di Qiong in his Corpse King transformation state. Thus, the first lock is your physical strength. Second, the progenitor's ancestral world. That's the path of Genesis. I once used Genesis's strength to lock himself, so it's no problem for me to lock you. Thus, the second lock is your ancestral world. Third, the power of time. You can reverse time by 1 second and you can look back in time. You can even use your footwork to travel through time. I have to say, kid, your talent is truly terrifying. I can't think of many beings who can surpass you. However, the stronger the power, the more you can lock yourself. Thus, the third lock is your own power of time. Chapter 32-24. As for the 4th lock, it's naturally your innate gift, the God Sealing Catalog. The Lu family's innate gift caught our attention when it was first born, and we wanted to deal with the Lu family. Who would have thought that such an innate gift would appear? However, the Lu family is under Tai Chu's protection, so we couldn't do anything. You actually used the God Sealing Catalog to seal the 3 realms and 6 Daoists to battle me. We never thought that we would face such a situation one day. However, the stronger the God Sealing Catalog is, the stronger the lock will be. Thus, the 4th lock is naturally the God Sealing Catalog. You cannot open the 4 locks array. Aside from me, no one else can help you open these 4 locks. You will never be able to use these 4 powers for the rest of your life. Of course, you can also learn from Tai Chu and break your own arms. No one had expected Tian Feng to have such a trick up his sleeve. It was no wonder that he had allowed Lu Yin to attack him. Even though he was already at a disadvantage, he had not intended to escape and had even fought to the death with Lu Yin. He had wanted to see Lu Yin's strength clearly and had chosen the 4 powers to form the 4 locks array to seal Lu Yin. Now he had succeeded. Lu Yin's God Sealing Catalog had disappeared, and he could no longer use the 4 powers. What did Lu Yin have left? Sapphire Zhilua was furious. So that's how it is. This is the source box array that sealed Master's power. Now you know. Aside from Tai Chu, who else has the qualifications to force me to use the 4 locks array? It's too late to know now. Tian Feng was pleased, even though the diagram on his body had already dimmed. After crippling Lu Yin, the center of this battle would shift. The Archer God, and the Ancestor of the past all looked over. The current Lu Yin could be killed. Kid, leave this battlefield, Sapphire Zhilua reminded. Tian Feng was pleased. Leave? Can he leave? What do you think the 4 locks array is? I can control the positions of the 4 locks. Unless he breaks his own arms and legs, he can't go anywhere. His arms and legs will forever be locked in these 4 locks, and he will never be able to appear again. Get over here. Tian Feng barked. Lu Yin's body was involuntarily dragged towards Tian Feng by the 4 locks. The Libra appeared in the sky, one side at Lu Yin's feet and the other at Qing Ping's feet. Qing Ping wanted to use this method to pull Lu Yin's body. But the lever broke. Qing Ping spat out blood. Spatial lines appeared as Su Wei made his move. He wanted to teleport Lu Yin over through space, but Lu Yin continued to head towards the sky seal. Su Wei's Taishan domain had been broken, but he did not give up. He used his sequence laws to block Lu Yin's path towards the sky seal. However, the sequence particles continued to scatter. The heavenly seal's laws didn't approach them, making it difficult for the sequence particles to block them. Su Wei's body swayed, his face pale. Lung Qing rushed towards Lu Yin without a care in the world, but she was trapped by the skyward formation and fell down. Far away, the wooden carving's blade slashed at Tianfeng. The moment the blade approached Tianfeng, it constantly dissipated. An ordinary blade was useless against Tianfeng, but a sequence law blade was unable to get close to Tianfeng. No one could help Lu Yin, and they could only watch as he headed towards Sky Seal. In front of Tianfeng, a skyward array visible to the naked eye appeared right in the middle of Lu Yin. More than 10 skyward arrays combined together to form a weapon that used the array as its edge. As long as Lu Yin approached, he would be cut down by this weapon. Having lost 4 decisive forces, it was impossible for Lu Yin to block the combined weapons of the Skyline array, which was capable of trapping a sequence law powerhouse. Lu Tianyi and Lu Yuan. Wu Tian and the others wanted to save Lu Yin, but they were powerless. They had been holding back the ancient gods while Tianxi and the others were being held back. Lu Yin got closer and closer to the weapon, and when he looked up, the edge reflected a chilling light in the dusky sky. It seemed as if it had existed for a very long time, and it had indeed existed for a very long time. This was definitely not a battle technique that Tianfeng had created on a whim. Perhaps the progenitor's hands had been cut off by this weapon. This was no longer a battle but an execution, a punishment. Tianfeng wanted Lu Yin to be killed in front of everyone so that he could shatter everyone's minds. Lu Yin was the current human's belief. Once that belief was shattered, it would be difficult for it to appear again. Everyone wanted to save Lu Yin, but Lu Yin himself was unusually calm. He approached Tianfeng so calmly that it made Tianfeng uneasy. The runes on Tianfeng's body flickered. It should not be this calm. How could it be? I can't let him get close. Tianfeng suddenly felt a sense of danger. But how can I execute him if I don't get close? The heaven-filling formation could not be too far away from Tianfeng. Given Lu Yin's current distance, the 3-terminal formation could kill him, but it had already been used twice, and its stored death energy was gone. The 2 realms disintegration formation could not be used under Jialan Jilua's interference. This was the only move that could kill Lu Yin. But why was this person so calm? He was so calm that even Tianfeng did not dare to let him get close. Oh, it's fake. It's definitely fake. He's faking it so that Tianfeng could not execute him. That's right, it's definitely fake. Encio had been trapped by the 4 locks formation, and it had been difficult for him to resist. This person had 4 decisive forces locked down, so there was no way he could have extra strength to attack Tianfeng. How could this person surpass Encio? Tianfeng sneered, "Humans, you're all too hypocritical. Do you think I'll fall for it? It's because of your hypocrisy and arrogance that you humans will suffer the consequences of your actions. Humans, your doomsday has arrived." Lu Yin's gaze was playful and mocking as he sized up Tianfeng. "What are you afraid of?" Tianfeng turned. "Me? Afraid? Human, you're the one who's going to die. I'll execute you right in front of you humans and separate your head from your body. No, I'll flay your skin and pull out your bones. You'll die in humiliation just like Jiawan Jilua." The mocking smile in Lu Yin's eyes grew even more intense, and behind it was an indescribable killing intent. "Let me ask you, what are you afraid of?" Tianfeng's tone was gloomy. The more someone fears death, the crazier they become before death. "You've already gone mad and you're saying I'm afraid? What a joke." Lu Yin disdainfully replied, "The greatest respect you can show to a civilization is to destroy that civilization. Back then, the dazzling above heaven made you afraid, so you secretly attacked the progenitors instead of openly. You knew that the moment you were discovered, the 3 realms and 6 Daoists would be enough to wipe you out. And now, you can't wait to join forces with the Eternals to wage war against us. You're also afraid. You're afraid that the humans are developing too quickly for you to stop. You're afraid that we'll find out the truth and take revenge on you. You're afraid that we'll become your nightmare. I've received this respect and I've received it on behalf of the entire human race. Tianfeng was so angry that he laughed. Ridiculous human. You're too arrogant, just like Taichu. You deserve to die, Taichu deserves to die, and you deserve to die even more. You haven't even reached Taichu's level, yet you're already so arrogant. You deserve to die even more than Taichu. Go to hell. In the sky, more than a dozen weapons formed by the linear overflowing sky array slashed down. Lu Yin had just arrived. He looked up at the sky and mocked. Have you forgotten that the human's greatest weapon is their intelligence? As he spoke, he released the void from his heart. The void was repelled by spacetime and swept out in all directions, isolating the weapons formed by the linear overflowing sky array. With Tianfeng's strength, the weapons could naturally penetrate the void, but it would take time. Lu Yin would not give Tianfeng this time, as Tianfeng needed this time more than Lu Yin did. After all, Lu Yin had deliberately allowed himself to be sealed. He took out the Grim Reaper's left arm and the Go Lian from his cosmic ring. Outside his heart, the black and white fog formed a tornado that connected the sky and the earth. This was the death energy that he had just absorbed from the three-terminal array. Tianfeng had taken care of this death energy and sealed it within the array, so one could imagine how powerful it was. This was the Grim Reaper's power. When the black and white fog connected with Lu Yin, his entire person changed. His hair grew longer and fell to his waist, and his eyes became dark and lifeless. The clothes on his upper body turned to dust, and the black gas swirled around him like clouds. It turned into chains and dark red runes appeared on his body. His black cloak fluttered and his left arm was wrapped in a white gas that turned into a shield. His right hand should have been the giant Golian, but now only half of it remained. It was the Grim Reaper's weapon. Behind him, a black gas rose up, making him look like a demon. This was the Grim Reaper transformation. Compared to the previous Death God transformation, the current Death God transformation had an additional change. It was the black gas that had appeared behind Lu Yin. It slowly took on the form of a human figure that stood tall and lofty. Just one look at it would send chills down one's spine. The appearance of this figure caused the temperature of the 6 zones to drop significantly. Lu Yuan, Hongyan Mavis and the others cried out, "Chuhiai?" The figure behind Lu Yin was the Grim Reaper. Lu Yin used the Grim Reaper's left arm and the Go Lian. Under the Grim Reaper transformation, it was as if the Grim Reaper had been dragged over from the distant river of time. The Grim Reaper raised his head, and even though it was only his left arm, his might instantly swept across the sky and the earth, accompanied by the Go Lian's slash. During the Above Heavens era, the 3 realms and 6 Daoists had dominated the entire universe. Although the 3 realms and 6 Daoists had never fought over who was the strongest, they all knew that the Grim Reaper was someone that they could not afford to provoke. The others' powers were either used for inheritances or were mysterious and unfathomable. Only the Grim Reaper's power was focused on killing. Aside from that, there was no other use for it. The Grim Reaper had been born to kill. The name Grim Reaper did not come from him. The progenitor had named them, and when they grew up they all changed their names. Chuhiai had also changed his name, but his name had long since been forgotten. In the end, only the 2 words Grim Reaper had been passed down. He was the Grim Reaper of that era, the most resplendent Grim Reaper of the Above Heavens era. In that era, who would dare to become someone else's Grim Reaper? Only Chuhiai could. When the power of death had first appeared, the shock it had brought was something that Lu Yuan and the others could still remember. That power had even buried the laws of the sequence. In that era, the humans and astral beasts had fought fiercely, and it had only gotten worse as time passed. In the end, even the desolate god of the 3 realms and 6 Daoists could not help but take action. However, all the astral beasts, including the desolate god, had been suppressed by the Grim Reaper. Without exception, regardless of whether it was the primordial space or the invited astral beasts from the parallel universes, they had all been suppressed by the Grim Reaper. The Grim Reaper, alone with the Go Lian, had dominated the 4th mainland and suppressed everything. That was the Grim Reaper. Chapter 32-25. Lu Yin had come into contact with ancestor Lu Yuan, Hongyan Mavis, Gu Yizhi and Wu Tian. Even now, he felt that only the Grim Reaper's power had given him an unparalleled shock. This shock was not only because he cultivated this power, but also because the death aura brought about the fear that was imprinted in the bloodlines of countless astral beasts. It was the path of death for countless people. Just as its name suggested, it was Death Aura, the aura of death. Tianfeng was stunned as he watched Go Lian slash down. How was this possible? How did this kid still have this power? Where did it come from? Just how much power had he cultivated? No one could answer him. Even Mr. Mu was amazed by Lu Yin's cultivation, let alone Tianfeng. The Grim Reaper's appearance was all thanks to Tianfeng's three-terminal formation. Without the death aura within the formation, Lu Yin would not have been able to draw out the Grim Reaper. This was the Grim Reaper's slash. A crisp sound rang out clearly in everyone's ears. Following that, darkness enveloped the sky, transforming into a black torrent that shattered half of the second disaster zone's continent. The sky darkened. The death aura replaced the sky, shocking everyone. Even Tianxi was stunned. He thought of the distant past and the battle with the Grim Reaper. He had faced a hopeless situation that had chilled him to the core. Fortunately, the Grim Reaper was already dead. He was dead. Atop the Black Mother Tree, the sole true god looked up at the sky with a complicated gaze. In the past, it had been extremely difficult for him to work with the four guardians to deal with the above heavens sect. The 3 realms and 6 Daoists had all avoided him, schemed against him and surrounded him. It had been even more difficult than now. Back then, the 3 realms and 6 Daoists had all reached the peak of the sequence laws and could break through to the primordial realm at any time. Those battles were still vivid in his mind. As for the Grim Reaper, he was definitely the most difficult expert to deal with in the past battles. That battle had shocked even him. It was a very familiar scene. The aura of death that shook the heavens and the earth was enough to bury everything, including the sequence particles that filled the world. If not for, fortunately it had ended in the end. The Grim Reaper was dead. He turned to look into the distance. After suffering such a blow, Tianfeng was also finished. Under the Black Mother Tree, the Grand Empyrean stared into the distance in a daze. How nostalgic. The darkness slowly dispersed. The aura of death would eventually disappear. Everyone looked up at the sky and saw Lu Yin as well as another figure. It was a long-haired woman whose entire body was wrapped in bandages. Her face couldn't be seen, and besides her hair and watery eyes, nothing else could be seen. However, her aura seemed to stand out from the rest of the world. Even though her face couldn't be seen and even though she was wrapped in bandages, everyone could still feel her untainted aura. Flowy. Hongyan Mavis' eyes were red as she clenched her fists. Wu Tian and Lu Yuan's faces darkened. They did not see wrongly. That was definitely Jialanjul. She had come out from Tianfeng's body. But how could the current Jialanjulua be the same as before? At that time, Jialanjulua was the most beautiful and was known as the beauty of Luo River. She stood aloof from the world and looked down on everyone. Even her master said that her beauty was like the essence of heaven and earth. No. Flaying the skin and pulling out the bones, the punishment of disfigurement, the heavenly seal, damn it. Lu Yin and Jialanjulua had their backs to the crowd as they looked ahead. Tianfeng's figure was revealed and the darkness dispersed. The pattern on the surface of his body started to crack from a single point like a spider web. Tianxi's face darkened. Tianan's voice was no longer as gentle as before. Humans, you have defied the heavenly seal. You will suffer the pain of extinction. Tianfeng, this chapter is not finished. Please turn the page. She retreated continuously as she shrieked, humans, you are dead meat. Your race will definitely go extinct. You will go extinct. Jialanjulua opened her hand and a white spear appeared. She took a step forward and raised the spear, smashing it towards the heavenly seal. I'll kill you first. Her body suddenly stopped. Skyward array. Lu Yin put away the Grim Reaper's left arm and Go Lian, and his body returned to its original state. His skin was dry and withered and he raised his hand. Even though his hands and feet were still bound, he had cultivated too many powers. He could not use these 4 powers, so he decided to switch. Things could only move in the opposite direction when they reached an extreme. The general appointment platform appeared, and the stars in the sky above his heart trembled. Void God Force, Wood Force, Monarch Aura and many other powers appeared and rushed towards the heavenly seal. The heavenly seal was dumbfounded. He still had so many powers. How could someone cultivate so many different powers? Impossible. It's all fake. It's all fake. Lu Yin was trapped by the skyward array, and he summoned Mo Shang, the Violet Emperor, the 7-star Mantis, Silent Void and the 17 progenitors. They formed an army and charged towards the heavenly seal. This scene left many speechless. He was clearly one person, but he had summoned a group of people to attack the enemy. This was the Lu family's innate gift, and it was too abnormal. The skyward array continued to trap powerhouses one after another. If this had been before, the heavenly seal would not have cared if these life forms attacked it, as they posed no threat to it. But now the array had been shattered and the surface of its body was cracking. Could not take any damage. The seven-star mantis spread its wings and flew towards the heavenly seal at a speed comparable to that of time, raising its blade and slashing down. The heavenly seal did not have an advantage if they were not sequence laws. It would rather these powerhouses be sequence laws powerhouses. With a bang, the heavenly seal was struck by the mantis blade, and it staggered backwards. Silent Void unleashed a hollow palm from afar, striking the heavenly seal's body and forcing it back once more. The Violet Emperor's strength was extremely strong, and it was comparable to that of victorious Celestial. Immortal was the first sequence law powerhouse that Lu Yin had encountered, but he was by no means weak. His strength was comparable to that of Yao and the Forsaken. The 17 progenitors could not hurt the heavenly seal, but these 4 were causing the heavenly seal to crack continuously. Tianan flapped its wings, trying to save the heavenly seal. Tianxia also attacked, but they were all blocked. In this battle, 2 blade-like Xia Di and the 5 elders had died, but it was not enough. Di Qiong had to die. Zhou skyward array was dispelled, and she swung her spear, smashing it onto the heavenly seal's body, causing the cracks to widen. Lu Yin also broke free from the skyward array and rushed towards the heavenly seal. Tianan's voice rang out, "Human, do you really want to fight to the death with the protectors of the 4 directions?" Hongyan Mavis snorted, "Begging for mercy now? Too late? Let me tell you clearly, Tianfa was killed by the Star Toad and we helped it. This means that Tianfa's death is related to us. What can you do?" Tianan was shocked. "Star Toad? Impossible." "Why is it impossible? What kind of toad do you think it is?" Hongyan Mavis was disdainful. Even at this juncture, when the protectors of the 4 directions were at a disadvantage, she would not let go of the chance to drag the Star Toad down. Tianan did not have time to care about how Tianfa died, and she wanted to save the heavenly seal. But she could not do it, and neither could Tianxia. "Eternal, the heavenly seal cannot die." Tianxia spoke to the one true God for the first time, and his face was terrifyingly gloomy. The masters besieging him made it impossible for him to save the heavenly seal. On the Black Mother Tree, the one true God narrowed his eyes. "I can't do anything." Bai Wuxian had already appeared, but he was still beaten out. Now he was entangled with Lu Tianyi. This chapter is not finished, please turn the page. Unless the last of the 3 chiefs of the Eternal Tribe appeared, the situation could not be reversed. Lu Yin had been wary of the last of the 3 chiefs, but he had not appeared until now. This puzzled him. The more he did not appear, the more uneasy he felt. "Humans, you have committed a heinous crime and you will regret it. You cannot attack me. You are offending your superiors." The heavenly seal continued to evade the attacks. Zhou spear struck Tian Seal's body from top to bottom, smashing him to the ground and creating a huge crater. Lu Yin rode the 7-star mantis and followed closely behind. He stepped on the heavenly seal and wielded the sword that the undying god had given him to kill Immortal. "More than one person said that I offended my superiors, but in the end I stomped them all to death. How can I be superior? How can I be inferior? If there's any, it's us humans who are superior to you." He then stabbed the sword down. Tianxi's eyes went wide and he stared fixedly at the scene. Tianan shouted, "Pathmaster Lu, please have mercy." But it was too late. Lu Yin's sword stabbed into the heavenly seal's body, and there was a crisp cracking sound. The heavenly seal was completely shattered. Lu Yin stared at his feet. He wanted to see what this heavenly seal was. It looked like a source box, and since it was a source box, there must be something sealed within. Could this be considered lock-breaking? It was the most difficult lock-breaking in history. The battle stopped and everyone stared at Lu Yin's feet. Was heavenly seal dead? The protector of the 4 cardinal directions, a primordial realm expert, had died just like that? This was the first primordial realm expert that everyone knew had died. Heavenly seal had been a primordial realm expert, someone who had participated in killing a primordial ancestor and severed his arms. At this moment, They all felt like they were dreaming, as if they were watching a legend come to an end. A legend that came to an end would definitely rise with another legend. Lu Yin's image was deeply imprinted into everyone's hearts, including Tianxi. Tianxi's face was terrifyingly calm as he stared at Lu Yin. At that moment he was not the only one watching. Everyone in the universe behind him was watching as well. Someone had done something similar at some point in the past, but the outcome had been extremely miserable. The more indomitable he was now, the more legendary he became, the more tragic the final outcome would be. This person had pierced through the heavens. Tianfeng was different from them. Tianfa could die, Tianan could die, and even Tianxi could die. Only Tianfeng could not. Now it was all too late. Lu Yin stared at Tianfeng's feet. The surface of the heavenly seal's body had shattered, and what appeared before his eyes was a sword, a strangely shaped blood-red sword. The moment he saw the sword, Lu Yin's eyes narrowed. He had seen this sword before. In the Mirage domain, Tianfa had roared out and a blood-red figure had appeared. A single figure and a single sword had left Hongyan Mavis and the Star Toad completely powerless to fight back. Even Tianxi's body had been ripped apart with a single strike. At that moment he had despaired. The blood-red figure had been toying with him. If it were not for Lu Guang, he might have died already. The blood-red figure had used this exact sword. It was the exact same. Lu Yin stared at the sword blankly as an uncontrollable coldness rose up from the bottom of his feet, causing his entire body to turn cold. At that moment he suddenly raised his head, and he seemed to see a pair of eyes open, looking at him with a strange smile. He made a shushing gesture at him. His feet lightened, and when Lu Yin lowered his head again, the sword had already vanished. Thank you. Tomorrow will be even better. 19147 Brothers tip, I'll give it to you, thank you. The temperature has suddenly changed. I seem to have caught a cold. Brothers, keep warm. End of chapter. Chapter 32:26. Lu Yin stared blankly at the ground. Was that an illusion? Oh, it was real. The sword had disappeared. If there was a sword, there would be a master. He felt powerless, and the sword in his hand fell to the ground with a soft clang. An unprecedented sense of danger welled up within him. He had felt this when he had first entered the cultivation world, but ever since he had gained the ability to protect himself and returned from the Lu family, this sense of danger had long since disappeared. Even when he had almost been killed by the one true God, he had not felt this sense of danger. Now this feeling was like a normal person encountering a hungry beast. The fear of being treated as food grew stronger and stronger. The sky darkened even further. The battlefield was silent. Lu Yin looked around and saw the excited gazes of the humans. Tianfeng was dead, and they could even kill a primordial realm powerhouse. What else could they not do? He recalled Elder Shan Gu's words. In that universe, countless seniors had crossed the river of time and emerged, but they had all been killed by that omnipotent existence. Lu Yin had not felt that sense of despair back then, but now he did. His body felt powerless and he could not even hold his sword steadily. With a boom, Sapphire Zhou descended and looked at Lu Yin strangely. What's wrong? Did you see something just now? Lu Yin shook his head. I'm powerless. It's the Four Locks formation. Sapphire Zhou frowned. Tianfeng is already dead, so why is the Four Locks formation still here? She then looked at Lu Yin's feet. Where's the corpse? Lu Yin replied, there's no corpse. It's a source box that was unlocked. There's nothing inside. Sapphire Zhou sighed. This is the most difficult source box to unlock in the universe. I thought that I would be able to unlock some treasure, but it's just an empty shell. Lu Yin felt bitter. He really wished that there was nothing inside. Alright, you should rest. You've done well in this battle. Leave the rest to us. Sapphire Zhou stepped forward and looked around the battlefield. Fertile soil, Kaihong Wuda, what are you waiting for? Let's completely eradicate the everlasting race. With that, she charged towards Tianan with her spear. Of the four guardians, Tianan was the worst at fighting. If not for the sake of saving her, Lu Yin would not have chosen Tianfeng as his target. Killing Tianan was much easier than killing Tianfeng. Tianan's voice sounded. Although his voice was gentle, his tone was cold. Human, I don't regret attacking Absolute Beginning. You are too presumptuous. Butterfly, I want to treat you as a specimen. Jialan Jilua thrusted out his spear. At the same time, the corners of Hongyan Mavis's mouth curled up. Hua Hua, let's see who can catch her first. It must be me. The battle continued and Lu Yin stood in place and looked at his arms and legs. Tianfeng hadn't actually died and that was just its shell. Lu Yin was still trapped by the four locks array. If he was like this, would the primogenitor's hands be the same? As for the blood-red figure, he tried his best not to think about it as it was pointless. Just like what he had said to Great Elder Shangu, there was no limit to the universe. Which existence did not kill the lost clan and allowed them to escape to this universe? It was not that he did not want to, but perhaps he could not. Any existence with a limit must have a limit. Otherwise there would be no limit. It was as if there had never been an eternal realm expert in this universe. Was that bloody figure an eternal life realm expert? Not necessarily. When he was a half-ancestor he could fight against the five gods. Now that he had reached the progenitor realm, even though he had only broken through to the progenitor realm with his inner world, he already had the strength to kill Di Qiong head-on. He was confident that he could kill any one of the 7 heavenly gods alone. What about when he reached the sequence law level? What would happen when he broke through to the primordial realm and crossed bitter adversity? No one could say for sure, but there was one thing that everyone agreed upon. Lu Yin would be truly invincible at that time. Whether it was the Star Toad, the ancient god Lu Yuan, the Grand Empyrean, the one true god, or even the primogenitor Taichu, they might not be able to fight him. Then could it be the same for the blood-red figure? If there was one person like him in the universe, there might be a second one. He did not forget that this universe had a civilization before the humans, and the river of time had flowed for an unknown period of time. Perhaps that blood-red figure was the strongest of that civilization. As long as he was not an eternal life realm expert, there was a chance of victory. Lu Yin's gaze was firm. He could defeat the eternal race and he could go to Immemorial City to meet up with his master and the primogenitor. What else was there to be afraid of? The most important thing now was to break the four locks formation. Lu Yin himself was a lock-breaking expert, and at this level he could only think of 2 people who could do it. One was Ancestor Hui and the other was himself. The others, including Gu Yan, Li Tianshi, and Xiao Mingshi, were all at a lower realm than him, and they were unable to reach this level. The most important thing for lock-breaking was to either be able to withstand the danger of a source box or be able to see it clearly and avoid it. If one could not do either, then they would be courting death. Gu Yan and the others were clearly in the same situation. They could not see through Lu Yin's 4 powers, so they could not see through the four locks formation. They could not avoid the danger of the source boxes formed by Lu Yin's powers, so it was impossible to rely on them. Unless Gu Yan and the others reached the sequence law realm. In Lu Yin's opinion, even if Ancestor Hui was not as strong as Ancestor Qin or Ancestor Ku, he would not be too far off. In particular, Ancestor Hui had compiled true insight and was one of the few supreme lockbreakers in human history. However, Lu Yin did not know where Ancestor Hui was. The only person he could rely on was himself. The battle in the second disaster region was extremely intense, but Lu Yin could not interfere. His remaining power was not enough to cause much damage to the 7 sky gods or the 4 guardians, so it was better to leave it to others. He focused on studying the 4 locks formation. Power, the mortal ancestors' world, the power of time, and the innate gift of the divine seal catalog. The 4 locks were firmly locked in place and Lu Yin kept thinking about it. He even used the root of wisdom to brew tea, but he still could not think of a way to break them. Using his own power to imprison himself, and using the 4 strongest powers that he possessed, the 4 locks formation gave Lu Yin the feeling of a self-imposed prison. It was no wonder why it had been able to seal the progenitor's hands and force him to break his own. Tianan, let's go. Tianxi's voice came from the distance. When Lu Yin looked over, he saw that Tianxi had already reunited with Tianan, and they were both looking at Lu Yin. The 2 stared at each other and Lu Yin could see the boundless killing intent in Tianxi's eyes. There was also unconcealable regret. Was Tianxi regretting not killing Lu Yin earlier? Was he regretting allowing Lu Yin to grow? The humans of this universe have no future, and you are no exception, Tianxi said before being drowned out by numerous attacks. The light turned into specks of light that bloomed and instantly enveloped the entire second disaster region like a blooming flower. Jiang Feng, Wu Tian, and the others were unable to chase after them. They could only watch as Tianxi and Tianan left. Lu Yin narrowed his eyes. Tianxi was extremely powerful, and if he was placed among the Eternals, he would definitely be second only to the one true God. Whether or not the ancient gods could defeat him was still unknown, and the chances of them losing were even higher. Lu Yin felt slightly uneasy that such a powerhouse had escaped. However, they had already done their best in this battle. The humans had mobilized all of their experts, and they had even allowed the Above Heaven sect, the Six Directions Society, and the Astral Tree Society to face danger in order to prepare for this battle. The results of this battle were not bad. One of the four guardians had died and the Eternals had lost Di Qiong. They had also betrayed He Wuxian, and they had even forced Bai Wuxian out, allowing them to understand his power. Although the humans had also suffered great losses such as Heir Ji and Emperor Shang, as well as Bai Xing and several other progenitors, it was still much better than the Eternals' losses. It was impossible for there to be no deaths in a war. This battle had come suddenly, but it was the greatest victory that the humans had ever achieved in a decisive battle against the Eternals since the era of the Above Heaven sect. The Eternals still had 3 of the 4 guardians and Bai Xiener, who had broken through to the progenitor realm. After Tianxi and Tianan left, the ancient gods Ancestor Shi, Bai Wuxian, Arrow God, and the god of Forgotten Ruins rushed toward the Black Mother Tree at the same time. Lu Yuan and the others hurriedly stopped them, wanting to kill another Eternals expert. Under the ground, the divine power lake suddenly rose as if the world had been turned upside down. The divine power rivers of the other 5 zones of disaster gathered and flooded the second disaster region at this moment. All the human experts could only protect themselves, and the surviving Eternals were swept away by the divine power rivers, heading toward the 6 paths of reincarnation realm. The 6 paths of reincarnation realm only targeted the one true God, and the other creatures were free to come and go. The endless divine power rivers swept the remaining Eternals in, turning into a red ribbon that separated the Eternals from the 6 paths of reincarnation realm. Everyone looked toward the Black Mother Tree. The only true God was in the lead, and the Ancestor Shi and other experts stood beside him, looking at Lu Yin and the others. They were separated by the 6 paths of reincarnation realm and the divine power lake. Lu Yin walked forward, and in the sky, all the human experts walked toward the Black Mother Tree without making a sound. Gradually, all the human experts gathered around Lu Yin and walked out of the 6 paths of reincarnation realm. Inside the 6 paths of reincarnation realm was the only true God and the Eternals experts. Chapter 32:27. The only true God's eyes were filled with admiration. Actually, I would never have dreamed that this day would come. The everlasting race was able to force your primordial space and 6 direction society to the point that they had no choice but to use the endless battlefield as a buffer, not daring to take the initiative to attack. However, all of this changed with your appearance. Master Lu, I admire you. No one had thought that this day would come, including the humans themselves and of course Lu Yin. Lu Yin would never forget the despair he felt when he saw the 6 zones of calamity on the Black Mother Tree. At that moment, although the Arrow God's arrow had been blocked by a Grand Empyrean, Lu Yin felt as if he had been shot, and his entire body turned cold. He was not as strong as he appeared to be. Many years of persistence and faith had been shattered when he saw the 6 zones of calamity. He had seemed impassioned and had spoken to the Grand Empyrean Celestial Champion Dushabag, and even the entire human race about his lifelong beliefs. He had spoken of his determination to seek death, but he had also spoken to himself. All he could do was take one step at a time. If death was not scary, then what was there to be afraid of? Lu Yin would never have thought that he would be able to reach this point. Decades of experience flashed before his eyes, and Lu Yin saw his past helplessness. He had needed encouragement and help, but who could have helped him back then? Even the Lu family's return could not give him the confidence to win. The everlasting race was too strong. However, humans could always make the impossible possible. Now he stood here, and any one of the people by his side could roam the universe for countless years and leave behind a legend. They would all be legends in the future. As for himself, he would be a legend among legends. Countless years later, humans might not even believe that such a period of history had existed. Then he would make history cleaner and completely overturn the page of the everlasting race. Although Absolute Beginning was powerful and had created many creatures, he had brought glory to the primordial space for the first time. However, I don't admire him. His path was too smooth. In that era, humans weren't valued. The starry sky giant beast slaughtered humans. Although he rose up, he didn't encounter any real desperate situations. He was rarely targeted and he didn't have an enemy like the Eternal Clan. You are different. You walked out of the suppression of the everlasting race. Master Lu, regardless of whether you or us survive in the future, you will not be forgotten by history, the only true God said slowly. Lu Yin looked at him. You still think the everlasting race can exist? The only true God smiled. Fate cannot be changed. From the beginning, you were the losers. I admire you for leading humanity to this point, but I also feel sorrow for you. Lu Yin's eyes flashed. Don't be so secretive. These words won't increase your chances of survival. Even if they're true, I'd rather die standing than crawl to live. Behind the sole true God, Ancestor Shi and the rest looked at Lu Yin with complicated gazes. Who would have thought that there would be a day where they would be forced into such a state by this brat? Muji gritted his teeth. He had made the wrong choice. Who would have thought that the humans would reverse the situation so quickly? So what if he obtained the 3 ultimate skills of the true God? The Forgotten Ruins God sighed. He did not look at Lu Yin. Instead he looked elsewhere as if he did not care. Beside Lu Yin, Lu Yuan and the others did not speak. This chapter is not finished. Please turn the page. This was a conversation between the leaders of the humans and the everlasting race. No matter what they wanted to say, they had to show Lu Yin sufficient respect. Lu Yin represented the entire human race at this moment. There will be opportunities, but it depends on whether we can seize them. At least for now, the war has stopped, hasn't it? The only true God said calmly. Lu Yin frowned. He did not want the war to stop, but if he wanted to completely eliminate the everlasting race, he had to kill his way into the 6 paths of reincarnation realm. The others were fine, but the only true God was the biggest problem. How strong was the only true God? No one knew. Although the Grand Empyrean had blocked the only true God several times, and Thunder Lord Jiangfeng had attacked the only true God several times, they had all done so with the belief that they would die. The only true God had not revealed his full strength. Ancestor, are you confident in dealing with the everlasting race? Lu Yin asked. Lu Yuan frowned. Not at all. Lu Yin looked at Jiangfeng. Jiangfeng shook his head. Wu Tian reminded him, Master once said that the everlasting is the only powerhouse who might surpass him in the future. Then why didn't the ancestor deal with the everlasting back then? Lu Yin asked. Wu Tian sighed. There are some things that only Master can answer. Lu Yin looked at Ancestor Lu Yuan. Ancestor, back in the endless battlefield, how did you fight the everlasting to the point where both sides suffered? Lu Yuan looked at the Grand Empyrean. You have to ask her. She was the one who delayed the everlasting. Lu Yin looked at the Grand Empyrean. The Grand Empyrean had his back to everyone and he had no intention of speaking. Lu Yin said, logically speaking, although the everlasting is powerful, he should not be able to determine victory or defeat. At least, he did not kill the desolate ancestor, and neither you nor Uncle Jiang were injured by him. Jiang Feng's gaze was cold. Seems so, but have you thought about it? If the everlasting really has the strength that your ancestor said, why didn't he reveal it? A powerhouse with that kind of strength is enough to be a decisive force. My guess is that it might be related to bitter adversity. Lu Yin's eyes flickered. That's right, bitter adversity. The everlasting was facing bitter adversity. Lu Yuan and the others looked at each other. Actually, that's just our guess. No one knows what Eternal's bitter adversity is, but after so many years, the strength he has revealed is only equivalent to an ordinary primordial realm expert. It's not very high. The Grand Empyrean turned around with a sunken expression. An ordinary primordial realm expert? Everyone looked over and saw the Grand Empyrean's displeased expression. They remembered that it had always been the Grand Empyrean who delayed the everlasting. If the everlasting was an ordinary primordial realm expert, did that not mean that the Grand Empyrean was very ordinary as well? If you have the ability, you can try. Even an ordinary primordial realm expert can deal with all of you. Humph, the Grand Empyrean said coldly. Lu Yuan rolled his eyes. All right, then he's not ordinary. He's very powerful and so are you. Is that enough? The Grand Empyrean stared at Lu Yuan. Let's go. Don't go looking for death. The everlasting is not someone you can deal with. One of you can fight the everlasting and 100 of you can fight the everlasting as well. The only discovery is that the results are the same. The everlasting won't do anything and neither will you. Zhang Feng asked. Grand Empyrean, please tell us what you know. The Grand Empyrean's attitude towards Zhang Feng was not bad. I don't know either. The strength the Everlasting has displayed is far too abnormal. He must be using a method we can't think of to overcome the bitter calamity. Then it's even more reason for us to take action. Otherwise, once he overcomes the bitter calamity, who can stop him? Lu Yin could not help but ask. The Grand Empyrean said coldly, then he can give up. This chapter is not finished. Please turn the page. If he overcomes the bitter calamity and then kills you, the results will be the same. Lu Yin's eyelids twitched. He can do that. He can. The Grand Empyrean gave an affirmative answer. Afterwards, he seemed to feel that his answer was not enough, so he added, I can deal with quite a few of you, including the few of you from fertile earth. Even if I die, I can drag you down with me. If I can do that, the Everlasting can do even more. Otherwise, do you think I have nothing better to do than to fight the Everlasting and only deal with the Everlasting? As long as we don't deal with the Everlasting will never fail. Crazy woman, you sure talk big. You want to drag us down with you? Can you do it? Sapphire Gilor asked. She pressed her spear against the ground, causing it to crack. The Grand Empyrean looked at Sapphire Gilor. Stupid girl, you have a sharp tongue. When the time comes, I should have disfigured your face. When the time comes, we should have beaten you, Sapphire Gilor said with disdain. The Grand Empyrean ignored her and looked at Lu Yin. If you give up on the bitter calamity, the Everlasting can kill you all. If you don't give up, let him try. In any case, he won't be able to escape the 6 paths of reincarnation. I will do my best to erase his strength. This is your only chance of victory. What if he overcomes the bitter calamity? Lu Yin asked. The Grand Empyrean closed his eyes. Then we will die together. Lu Yin looked up at the one true God. From start to finish, the one true God had been very calm. There's nothing that time can't change. Even if the 3 pillars and 6 seas all die, I can still rebuild them in the future. Right now, your only chance is to kill me. See if you can do it. Lu Yin looked at him. Can I? The one true God looked at Lu Yin. Oh. Lu Yin nodded. Then forget it. Everyone was shocked, and Sapphire Gilor couldn't help but ask, hey, you're just going to let it go like this? Wu Tian stopped Sapphire Gilor from speaking and shook his head. Sapphire Gilor looked away and unwillingly looked at the one true God. The one true God praised, you know when to advance and when to retreat. Master Lu, the biggest difference between you and Encio is that he is watching from above, while you are climbing from below. Lu Yin didn't want to kill the one true God, not only because of the Grand Empyrean's words, but also because of Progenitor Hui and Wang Xiaoyu. Progenitor Hui was definitely hiding in the Everlasting race, but he hadn't been exposed. Why? There had to be a reason why he couldn't be exposed. What about Hui Wu? He was also in the Everlasting race, not too far away from the one true God. He hadn't turned into a berserk corpse, and if not for him, Lu Yin wouldn't have known that Chu Chen was at the roots of the Black Mother Tree. However, he hadn't been exposed either. There had to be a reason why he hadn't left the Everlasting race even though he knew that he would die. There was also Wang Xiaoyu. Whether it was through Progenitor Qin or Mu Ji, Lu Yin was sure that she wasn't a traitor. She had caused the 5th and 6th mainlands to go to war, so there had to be a reason behind it. Why hadn't she returned to the human side like Blacklist and Jade? Why had she followed the one true God? There had to be a reason. The Everlasting race still had 3 powerhouses who hadn't appeared yet. Why hadn't they appeared at this time? There were many signs that indicated that the Everlasting race hadn't truly reached the end of their rope. Although it seemed like there were many human powerhouses, the final result might not be as Lu Yin wished. Moreover, the owner of that sword was still alive, and his 4 seals array had yet to be unlocked. There was an unimaginable existence in this universe, and he had to preserve his strength for that existence. End of chapter. Chapter 32-28. There were many reasons that made it impossible for this battle to continue. Even if Lu Yin wanted to kill the only true God, it would have to be after he had unlocked the 4 locks formation. What about you? Where have you been all this time? Lu Yin asked with his hands behind his back. He had given up on killing the only true God. This battle was over and he could relax. The only true God smiled. I've been in a corner that you can't see. Lu Yin stared at the only true God as if trying to see through him. It's wise to give up on this battle. Tianxi has left and he'll bring his universe here. He can't see any hope with you here, so he can only fight, the only true God said. Lu Yin and the others' expressions changed. The universe behind Tianxi? The only true God nodded. In the past, Heaven's sect was too brilliant, but it was useless. That brilliance eventually dimmed. As I said before, Tai Chu looked down from the 9 heavens. He couldn't see the dangers in the dark corners. Countless schemes and conspiracies could drag him down. But you're different. You climbed up from the 9 heavens and the first thing you saw was not the endless light but the dark corners. You know that dangers only appear in the dark corners. Tianxi and I are both in the dark corners. If you see them, then there's no chance. Tianxi knows this very well, so if he really wants to bring the people from his universe here, he can only start a war. Lu Yin was curious. You Eternals can't coexist with us, but you can coexist with the humans from his universe? The only true God smiled. Who says we can't coexist? The Eternal Kingdom has already succeeded. It's just that you're unwilling. Then they're willing? Lu Yin didn't understand. No one was willing. The only true God slowly said something that Lu Yin couldn't understand even after he returned to Heaven's sect. They want to live, but you have to live. It's different. In the back mountains of Heaven's sect, Lu Yin was fishing with tea brewed by Zhou Xian beside him. The second battle in Disaster Zone had started, and Heaven's sect had also become a battlefield. Star Eater had charged over and Master Shan and Moon Ghost had died in battle. Fortunately, Star Eater had been defeated in the end. Elder Chan, Wuxia, Prison Drake and the Ancestral Turtle were all here. Star Eater alone had not been able to destroy Heaven's sect. Lu Qi arrived and looked at Lu Yin's hand. You can't undo it? Lu Yin smiled. Don't worry, Dad. It'll be fine. Lu Qi sighed and sat down beside Lu Yin. The fish in the lake were scared away. Little Seven, I'm so useless. I can't even participate in your battle. Lu Qi blamed himself. Lu Yin smiled. Father is a carefree person. When have I ever been so sentimental? Lu Qi scratched his head. If your mother knew about this, she would laugh me to death. Lu Yin looked at Lu Qi. You did well. Although Lu Qi was frivolous, and it was said that he'd stolen Lu Yin's mother, he'd still been the one to stand in front of Lu Yin when the Lu family had been exiled. Without him, Lu Yin wouldn't have survived until now. The general appointment platform had been Lu Qi's innate gift, and now that it was gone, he had lost the symbol of the Lu family. However, he had never cared about it and he hadn't even mentioned it to Lu Yin when they met. Lu Yin understood Lu Qi's love for him. He was a father who was willing to risk his life for him, and that was enough. Zhaoran, make some tea. No, I'm leaving. I'm not used to it. Dad, you've been fishing in the Zhongping Sea. Why aren't you fishing here? It's different. I'm not as refined as you. I'm leaving. Lu Qi didn't want Lu Yin to see him blaming himself. He wanted to become stronger no matter what. At the very least, he had to reach the level where he could fight alongside Lu Yin. Even if he had to take a hit for his son on that battlefield, it would be good. That. Lu Qi turned around. Lu Yin smiled. You've done well. Actually, it won't be long before even Patriarch Lu Yuan might not be able to participate in my battles. Your son is such a genius. Lu Qi froze, rolled his eyes and ran off. Lu Yin smiled, looked away and continued fishing. At this point, the Kingdom of Eternity in the 6 zones of calamity, as well as the Kingdom of Eternity in the parallel universe that the Eternals had occupied, were constantly being dismantled. The Eternals were all trapped in the 6 paths of reincarnation, and this universe seemed to belong to the humans for the time being. After some time, the Kingdom of Eternity was almost completely dismantled. Lu Yin stood up and headed for the Expedition of Calamity. Erji was dead and he wanted to pay his respects to her. The Expedition of Calamity didn't feel any grief. They were just ordinary people with short lifespans, and death was a common occurrence. Calamity replaced Erji and became the leader of the Expedition of Calamity. He was the one who welcomed Lu Yin. Looking at Erji's portrait, Lu Yin paid his respects according to the Expedition of Calamity's tradition. Mother had enjoyed enough while she was alive. Death is normal. You don't have to be sad. Lu Yin's gaze was complicated. What about you? How much longer can you live? Calamity calculated. More than 100 years. Lu Yin smiled bitterly. 100 years was too short. Perhaps the next time they met, the leader wouldn't be Calamity anymore. He was clearly at the top of the cultivation world, but he couldn't cultivate. Although the expedition of calamity was violent, it had helped him a lot. Lu Yin thought of Elder Gong, Master Shan and the others. His old friends would leave one by one, and the eternal realm wasn't a happy thing. After bidding farewell to the expedition of calamity, Lu Yin's next destination was the limitless empire. Emperor Shang was dead, and the broken Dizun had been carried back to the limitless empire. It was said that it could be repaired, but he would have to decide who would take control of the Dizun and become the new Emperor Shang. When Lu Yin arrived at the limitless empire again, there were many changes, even though not much time had passed since their first visit. Since it was connected to the Genesis space, cultivators from the limitless empire often entered out of curiosity, which also brought about changes in the cultivation world. The most obvious change was that there were many more people flying in the sky. This wasn't something that the ordinary people of the limitless empire could achieve. Lu Yin's arrival didn't attract much attention, and he directly entered the imperial city. There were no longer any pillars around the city, as they were scattered in the rings that connected the Genesis space and the various parallel spaces. One of them was called Yingdu, who had participated in the Second Battle of Calamity and was killed. His unlimited mecha Indestructible had also been destroyed. A 12-ring ring allowed one to have unlimited mechas, and in theory they could fight against sequence low realm powerhouses. However, participating in that kind of battle was miserable. Yingdu's death was an example. Although he had a large body in the Second Battle of Calamity, he hadn't been able to achieve much. Instead, he had been a target. The Limitless Empire's pillar of support had died so easily on the battlefield. This made the Limitless Empire even more fearful of above heaven and the Eternals, especially when the two halves of the Sovereign were brought back. This made the Limitless Empire sink even further. Silence. No one could describe what they were feeling, but they knew that the Dizun was far from enough to protect them. This was even worse than being suppressed by Lu Yin. Hong Yan gathered the upper echelons of the Limitless Empire and headed to the palace. Lu Yin was currently sitting in Emperor Shang's seat, calmly looking at his right hand, thinking about how to deal with the Four Locks formation. The upper echelons arrived one by one. Shang Tianzong, Shang Qing, Shang Anan, Bu Wu, Lu Ling and Optimus Prime. The remaining four were Jiao Feng, Yi Huanzhan and Shang Qiu. These people represented the future of the Limitless Empire. They didn't dare to make a sound and they just stood there silently. Lu Yin looked up and swept his gaze across the crowd, finally landing on Shang Tianzong and the others. I'm very sorry about Emperor Shang's death. Although the Limitless Empire had been suppressed by Lu Yin and forced to listen to him, that was only a temporary measure. The Limitless Empire had great potential, and once the 13-ring ring energy was developed, it would bring about a huge increase in the human race's strength. Moreover, many parallel space connections relied on ring energy, so Lu Yin had to comfort them. Emperor Shang was also one of the 8 outer paths, but he hadn't completely joined the above heaven sect. Shang Tianzong bowed. Sect Master, you're too serious. Since we've become one of the 8 outer paths, we have the duty to protect the above heaven sect and fight against the enemy. Life and death on the battlefield are very common. Lu Yin looked at him. Emperor Shang helped me a lot. Now that he's sacrificed himself, I have the duty to protect the limitless empire he left behind. Who is willing to replace Emperor Shang and become the new Emperor Shang? Everyone looked at each other, mainly at Shang Tianzong and Shang Qing. They were Emperor Shang's sons and only they were qualified to become the new Emperor Shang. Lu Yin's gaze also landed on them. The two subconsciously looked at each other and saw the bitterness in each other's eyes. Their once passionate pursuit of the throne had already become an extinguished beacon, and there was no longer the light in their eyes. Was there any meaning in becoming Emperor Shang? It was just another fighter by Master Lu's side. Was Emperor Shang willing to join the battlefield? Of course not. Shang Tianzong's words were just polite. If the Limitless Empire had a choice, they wouldn't want to get close to the above heaven sect even if they were beaten to death. Now, whoever became Emperor Shang would be a fighter by Master Lu's side. They had to participate in such a war and they had to face such death. Emperor Shang's current position was like an abyss of death to them. It was like a bottomless cliff and they could fall to their deaths at any time. No one answered. Lu Yin had expected this and that was why he came. Otherwise there was no need for him to come. The Limitless Empire had its own ways to find a new Emperor Shang. The current situation was that no one was willing to become Emperor Shang. Shang Tianzong, Lu Yin said. Shang Tianzong's heart sank and he bowed respectfully to Lu Yin. Headmaster. Lu Yin looked at him. You are the crown prince of the limitless empire. You should take over the throne. Shang Tianzong hurriedly said, Headmaster, although father is dead, he brought the limitless empire to its current height. The entire limitless empire misses him and we don't want to go against his wishes. When father was alive, he was more inclined to let fifth brother take over the throne. Shang Qing hurriedly denied it. Headmaster, there's no such thing. First brother is the crown prince and he should take over the throne. This is the rule of the limitless empire. Shang Tianzong frowned and looked at Shang Qing. Fifth brother, you've always been competing with me for the throne. I feel that I'm not as good as you and father knows that. He has advised me many times to let you become Emperor Shang. Don't reject it. Chapter 32-29. Hearing Shang Tianzong's words, Shang Qing retorted, You can control a limitless mecha master while I can only control a limitless mecha master. You're far better than me in this aspect. You've already helped father manage the various affairs of the limitless empire. The entire limitless empire knows about it. Shang Tianzong said, How can I compare to you in terms of managing the empire's affairs? There are 1785 officials in the empire. Fifth brother, you must have seen no less than 500 of them. Shang Cheng's heart skipped a beat. He didn't expect Shang Tianzong to know about this. He didn't meet those officials face to face but through secret channels. He had his own way of being discovered by Shang Tianzong. Brother, don't talk nonsense. Where would I find the time to meet so many people? And even if I did meet them, so what? They all praise you as the best candidate for Emperor Shang. I can't do anything about it. Shang Ainen rolled his eyes. On one hand he said he hadn't met them, but on the other hand he said he had. Shang Tianzong was the best candidate for Emperor Shang. Fifth brother, you're lying through your teeth. How could those people talk about the throne like that? That's courting death, let alone you. Shang Tianzong realized that he had underestimated Shang Cheng's shamelessness. How could he say something like that? He was so angry that he laughed. Fifth brother, you're being too modest. Actually, I've seen more officials. They all advised me not to fight for the throne with you. You can bring the limitless empire to greater heights. Father also agrees. Shang Ainen was speechless. Who would be so stupid as to say something like that? Who would dare to openly support fifth brother? Big brother was shameless. Just like that, Shang Tianzong and Shang Qing went back and forth, wildly praising each other and belittling themselves. In short, they were not fit to be Emperor Shang. Lu Yin watched with interest. He knew what these two were thinking. In fact, if it were him, he wouldn't want to be Emperor Shang either. Being Emperor Shang was equivalent to being one's own fighter. Not only would he be ready to fight at any time, he would also have to face life and death situations too frequently. He wouldn't have much power in the limitless empire either. After all, he didn't have time. He thought of the power that Elder Shan Gu's last statue had borrowed. Regent Bulu Tian. How domineering. Of these two people, one had become Emperor Shang and the other would definitely be the regent. Regardless of whether Emperor Shang was willing or not, he couldn't change it because he had to go to war with the Above Heaven sect. Lu Yin didn't interfere, so Shang Tianzong and Shang Qing could only push the blame to each other. Such a thing had never happened in the history of the limitless empire. Not only did they not want the position of Emperor Shang, but they also pushed it to their enemies that they wanted to kill. If the Emperor Palace was big enough to listen to these two people quarreling, finally someone couldn't take it anymore. Big brother, fifth brother, let's leave it to the Daoist master to decide whether or not to become Emperor Shang. Why are you two arguing for so long? Only Shang Ainen could stop them. Shang Tianzong and Shang Qing bowed to Lu Yin in unison. Please make your decision, headmaster. Lu Yin changed his posture. Done arguing? The two of them hurriedly bowed. Please forgive us, Daoist master. Lu Yin's gaze swept across the crowd. This is a family matter of the limitless empire, and it's not appropriate for me to interfere. Shang Ainen, right? Shang Ainen raised his head and glanced at Lu Yin before taking a step forward and bowing. Yes, your subordinate is Shang Ainen. Lu Yin asked, who do you think is suitable to become Emperor Shang? Shang Ainen didn't expect Lu Yin to give this problem to her. She looked at Shang Tianzong and Shang Qing and the two kept winking at her. Shang Ainen was in a difficult position. Daoist master, your subordinate is only a princess, and I have no right to decide the position of Emperor Shang. Tell me according to your feelings. Lu Yin was casual. Shang Ainan's gaze lingered on Shang Tianzong and Shang Qing for a long time. This chapter is not finished, please turn the page. After a while he finally gritted his teeth and said, according to the tradition of the empire, the crown prince Shang Tianzong should become the new emperor Shang. Shang Qing sighed in relief. Shang Tianzong's expression was ugly as he glared at Shang Ainan. He always knew that Shang Ainan and Shang Qing were close, and Lu Yin had asked her to make a choice. Shang Tianzong hurriedly wanted to say something, but Lu Yin raised a hand to stop him. Alright Shang Tianzong, you are the new emperor Shang. With that he walked down from the throne. Go and sit. Everyone looked at Shang Tianzong. Shang Cheng's eyes were filled with relief and fear. Shang Ainan's gaze was complicated. Between Shang Tianzong and Shang Qing, she naturally preferred Shang Qing. Moreover, many of her brothers had died mysteriously and everything pointed to Shang Tianzong. Shang Tianzong wanted to refuse, but Lu Yin had already said so. If he refused, it would be the same as denying Lu Yin's decision. Helpless, he could only walk to the throne step by step. When he passed by Lu Yin, he bowed solemnly. Daoist master, your subordinate does not dare to overstep. Please sit. Lu Yin waved his hand. I don't care about this seat, you can sit. Shang Tianzong's face paled as he looked at the throne, hesitating. Shang Qing relaxed and looked at Shang Ainan gratefully. If Shang Ainan had chosen him, he would be the one in a dilemma. No one knew what Lu Yin's attitude would be. Lu Yin looked at Shang Tianzong. Go and sit. Shang Tianzong's heart sank. He gritted his teeth and walked to the throne, sitting down nervously. Shang Qing was the first to bow. Greetings, Emperor Shang. Shang Ainan, Lu Ling, Bu Wu and the others followed suit. Greetings, Emperor Shang. Greetings, Emperor Shang. Hong Mian looked at Lu Yin. Lu Yin's expression was calm. He also bowed. Greetings, Emperor Shang. Shang Tianzong felt bitter and said in a low voice, you may rise. Thank you, Emperor Shang. Thank you, Emperor Shang. Lu Yin nodded. Since Emperor Shang's seat is taken, let's choose the user of Dizun. Shang Ainan was shocked. Daoist master, isn't Emperor Shang the one using Dizun? Who said so? Lu Yin asked. Shang Ainan froze and slowly lowered his head, not daring to ask again. Everyone else was stunned. Dizun had always been used by Emperor Shang. This was the rule of the limitless empire, so they tied Emperor Shang's position to Dizun and Lu Yin's hired thugs. Therefore Shang Tianzong and Shang Qing did not want to become Emperor Shang. If Emperor Shang did not become a hired thug, then Shang Cheng's expression changed and his eyes flickered. Shang Tianzong looked at Lu Yin's back, also confused. Lu Yin said, He walked out from the crowd. Daoist master. From today onwards you are the user of Dizun. Dizun is broken but it can be repaired. After it is repaired, control Dizun to find me in the above heaven sect. Yi hurriedly bowed. Yes. Lu Yin left and did not waste much time in the limitless empire. After he left, the atmosphere in the imperial palace relaxed. Shang Tianzong's eyes flickered. He understood that Lu Yin had done this on purpose. Dizun and Emperor Shang were separated. Lu Yin could have told them in advance that everyone would be willing to become Emperor Shang. However, he did not tell them in advance because it depended on who would be elected as Emperor Shang. Under such circumstances, the person who became Emperor Shang would be at a disadvantage. This chapter is not finished. Please turn the page. Shang Ainan was close to Shang Qing, so he pushed Lu Yin out, which was equivalent to harming him. However, Lu Yin had broken the rules of the limitless empire and allowed him to become Emperor Shang with real power. This was different. He would definitely hate Shang Qing and Shang Ainan, and then there would be two opposing forces in the limitless empire. The above heaven sect would no longer have to keep an eye on the limitless empire. Once there was a conflict within the limitless empire, any order given to the above heaven sect would be carried out. This was a small but obvious trick. There was only one way to implement it, and that was to have the strength to suppress everything. Lu Yin could act according to the traditions of the limitless empire, but he could also abandon them. The limitless empire could not resist. This was Lu Yin. He was not just Shang Tianzong. Everyone understood. The limitless empire was like a toy in Lu Yin's hands, unable to resist at all. Shang Qiu looked at Shang Tianzong, who was sitting high up on the throne. This person was the new Emperor Shang, but there was another figure standing behind him. The limitless empire had completely changed. Bu Wu sighed. To Lu Yin, it did not matter who became Emperor Shang or whether the limitless empire truly submitted to the above heaven sect. The limitless empire could not escape. This was what made him feel helpless. The limitless empire was just a toy. After leaving the limitless empire, Lu Yin arrived at the fifth mainland's Neoverse world. 4 people were already waiting here. Celestial Master Xiao Ming, Celestial Master Gu Yan, Celestial Master Li and Celestial Master Qiuling. There were only 4 Celestial Masters left in the primordial space. Actually, there was still a Celestial Master High Sage, but ever since he had failed to break through to the progenitor realm, he had aged greatly and lost his former strength. It made no difference whether or not Lu Yin found him. As for the 6 Direction Association, there were still other lock breakers at the Celestial Master level, but they were not stronger than Celestial Master Gu Yan, so there was no point in finding them. The 6 ancient spirit arrays had long since disappeared, and the 6 giant source boxes had been taken to the Shenwu continent. The only thing that Lu Yin was still familiar with in the Lockbreaker world was the ancient spirit sea in that continent. At this moment he was on the continent, meeting up with Celestial Master Gu Yan and the others at Celestial Master Xiao Ming's residence. This was Lu Yin's first time seeing Celestial Master Li. This lockbreaker specialized in killing sourcebox arrays and was one of the 4 Celestial Masters of the Cosmic Tree. The other was Celestial Master Qiuling. The last time Lu Yin had seen her was at the back of the battlefield, where she had faced off against Madman Lu's attack while facing off against Mu Shang. Lu Yin had not forgotten that Celestial Master Qiuling had a red back. There was also Madman Lu. It was time to find him to settle some matters. Celestial Master Qiuling's heart trembled when she saw Lu Yin again. Lu Yin's current position was something that she did not even dare to imagine. The difference between the two of them was just too great. If Lu Yin wanted to kill her, he could do so with a single look. He should know that she was a red back, but why had he never done anything to her after so many years? Did he know? Even Celestial Master Qiuling could not be sure. She had wanted to escape for a long time. When Lu Yin had become the Path Master of the Above Heaven sect, she had wanted to escape, but she had been constantly watched and unable to do so. Even if she tried to escape, she did not know where to go. The one who had been watching Celestial Master Qiuling was actually Celestial Master Li. Although Lu Yin had never met Celestial Master Li, that did not stop him from making Celestial Master Li do things for him. Lu Yin had never forgotten that Celestial Master Qiuling was a red back. The only reason he had kept her alive was to see if the Eternals would use her for something. However, as his strength increased and more experts from the Above Heaven sect joined him, Celestial Master Qiuling no longer seemed as important as before. End of chapter. Chapter 32-30. Let's begin, Gu Yan said. The 4 heavenly mentors sat around Lu Yin and began to explain everything about unlocking source boxes to him. Lu Yin didn't expect to rely on them to unlock the 4 locks array, but it was good enough to learn from their experience. With Lu Yin's current strength, there wasn't much he needed to learn. A few days passed as the 4 continued to explain. Lu Yin opened his eyes and looked down at his hands and feet. Is there any way? Gu Yan asked. Lu Yin shook his head. It's not enough to unlock the 4 locks array. Xiao Ming's expression was solemn. Perhaps only Progenitor Hui can unlock this array. Who came up with this source box array that uses one's own strength to seal one's body? Even a progenitor couldn't escape it. Even absolute strength can't break it. Otherwise, it'll be the same as breaking your strength, Li Tianxia said. Gu Yan looked at Lu Yin's hands. If there's no other way, I'll try to break through to the progenitor realm and see if I can unlock it. Lu Yin looked at him. You can't become a progenitor without breaking through 3 stages. Gu Yan thought about it and felt helpless. From start to finish, Qiuling didn't dare to say a single word. Lu Yin stood up and looked at Qiuling. When did you become a redback? Heavenly Master Gu Yan and Heavenly Master Xiao Ming were shocked. Redback? They both looked at Qiuling. Li Tianxia wasn't surprised as Lu Yin had asked him to keep an eye on Qiuling. Qiuling paled and hurriedly knelt. Headmaster, I didn't do it willingly. Please forgive me, Headmaster. Lu Yin looked at the kneeling Celestial Master Qiuling without pity. Not to mention that she was a redback and had brought great harm to the human race, she had schemed against him in the past, which was unforgivable. Just as he'd said to Xiao Yan and the others, would he forgive those who had harmed him in the past if he were in the present? His current self didn't have the right to forgive them on behalf of his past self. Every step on the path of cultivation was fraught with danger. The slightest carelessness could lead to complete defeat. There was no reason to forgive those who had harmed him. Qiuling was dead and there was no doubt about it. No one pleaded for her. Redback had to die. There were many things that needed to be dealt with. Although the Eternals were trapped in the 6 paths of reincarnation realm, they were still alive. He also had to find Xianxia and Tinan. The one true God's words made Lu Yin feel uneasy. How strong was the universe that Xianxia represented? Logically speaking, they shouldn't be so strong that this universe couldn't resist them. Otherwise, the people from that universe would have arrived long ago. But no matter what, they were still from the same universe, and Lu Yin had to consider what would happen when they arrived. What he needed to do now was to deal with the 4 locks formation. If he did not deal with the 4 locks formation, he would forever be a half-baked ancestor realm expert. Lu Yin arrived at the astral tree realm, found the Wang family's continent and entered. The continent of the Wang clan was the territory of the progenitor. Since the progenitor was trapped by the 4 locks formation, was the 4 locks formation still there? Lu Yin really wanted to take a look. Right now, the Wang family continent was a wasteland. The people of the Wang family had either fled for their lives or were captured and imprisoned under the Zhongping Sea. When news of Wang Fan's betrayal spread, the humans increased their search for the Wang family. The Wang family had produced Wang Miaomiao, one of the 7 sky gods. They had also produced Wang Xiaoyu, who had caused the 5th and 6th mainlands to go to war. They had also produced Wang Fan. Now no one trusted the Wang family. As for the Wang family continent, it was managed by the Lu family, and it could be said that it belonged to the Lu family. When Lu Yin arrived, the people of the Lu family hurriedly bowed. Lu Yin waved them away as he walked alone on the Wang family continent. Although the Wang family continent was a wasteland, it was not completely empty. Most of these people did not belong to the Wang family and had come here to look for opportunities. After all, it had once been one of the 4 scales. Along the way, Lu Yin saw many cultivators. The Lu family did not stop them. Searching for opportunities was what cultivators looked forward to the most, even if it was accompanied by danger. Of course, there were some places that these cultivators could not go to. One of them was the Triple Despair, which was where the Wang family nurtured their younger generation. The reason why they could not go there had nothing to do with the Lu family, as that place had been isolated by Wang Jian. Although the Wang family had completely declined, there were still some people that the Lu family did not touch. Wang Jian and Wang Miaomiao. Wang Miaomiao and Lu Qi had an affair, and this news had long spread throughout the cosmic tree. No one dared to do anything to Wang Miaomiao, and even if Lu Yi knew about it, he did not say anything. Many years had passed and Lu Qi had not accepted Wang Miaomiao. He had deep feelings for Lu Yin's mother, although he did not show it. Lu Qi was a complete person with his own life and Lu Yin would not interfere. Wang Jian had only been able to live peacefully in the Triple Despair because of Wang Miaomiao. Otherwise, even if the Lu family did not do anything to him, he would have died on the battlefield. The other place that he could not go was the Lu family's mine. The mine was what the Wang family called it to the outside world, but it was actually a place where they excavated Yellow Springs water. Yellow Springs water was extremely important, and the Lu family had sealed it off. Lu Yin arrived at the mine and looked down, but he couldn't see any Yellow Springs water. Even with his domain or spiritual force, he still couldn't find any. However, he knew that there was definitely Yellow Springs water below, and the Wang family had been digging for so many years without emptying it. He had once thought that the Yellow Springs water was the blood of the primogenitor, but he later realized that he had guessed wrong. The blood of the primogenitor was still red. This Yellow Springs water was definitely not the blood of the primogenitor, so what was it? On the day that the Lu family was exiled, Patriarch Lu Yuan had fallen into a deep sleep, and Patriarch Lu Tianyi had been stopped by Wei Nu. The rest of the Lu family's experts had not been able to make a move because of the Yellow Springs water. The Yellow Springs water could cause people to lose their strength and enter a state of powerlessness. It seemed similar to the illusory poison, but there were also some differences. Lu Yin was about to go down when he suddenly looked into the distance and disappeared. Far away, a figure was curled up under a rock. He had a nervous expression and looked at the mine through the cracks of the rock. "Are you looking for me?" a voice asked. The figure trembled and slowly turned around to see Lu Yin, who was very close to him. Lu Yin looked at the figure and said, I didn't expect you to still be here, little Can. This figure was little Can, the one who had used the wisdom root to buy his life in the back battlefield. He had left the battlefield in advance, but had been captured by Wang Sun and brought to the Wang family's mainland. Lu Yin had a deep impression of this person as he had obtained a wisdom root from him. When he had disguised himself as Hao Yu, he had seen little Ken in the Wang family's mainland mining area. He had thought that the Wang family's decline, and that little Ken had either been killed or escaped, but he was still here, not far from the mining area. Why did he stay here? Lu Yin realized that he had overlooked this person. Even though he had a deep impression of him, he had never really cared about him. He had only wanted to obtain the wisdom root from him. Now that he had seen him here, Lu Yin knew that this person was hiding something. Little Ken stared at Lu Yin in a daze. He had never expected Lu Yin to suddenly appear here and even discover him. He felt that he had hidden himself very well. A normal person would not be able to imagine how strong a cultivator was. The difference between little Ken and Lu Yin was like the difference between a normal person and an explorer. Normal people would never be able to walk through the void or roam the heavens. They could not imagine how humans could do it. However, that was not important as Lu Yin had already discovered him. Master Lu. Greetings, Master Lu. Little Ken bowed respectfully and tried his best to remain calm. Lu Yin looked at him. I can see your every expression and hear your every breath. Little Ken's heart sank and he did not dare to move. I can roughly guess what you are thinking. The current universe, the primordial space, the hexagon society, the outer realm, and even the eternal 6 zones of disaster are all under my control. What are you planning to hide from me? Lu Yin asked calmly. Little Ken quickly knelt down, his face pale. I dare not. I dare not. I'm not hiding anything. Please, Master Lu. Lu Yin looked at him amused. How long has it been since we first met? Little Ken swallowed and tried to recall. Long, about 70 years. Lu Yin clasped his hands behind his back and sighed. Yes, 70 years. You have matured a lot since the first time we met. Back then you were still very young and skinny. You were like a deer that had accidentally entered the battlefield and could be eaten at any time. Little Ken trembled. Master Lu's appearance has not changed at all. Lu Yin looked at him. But my heart has become even colder. Little Ken placed his hands on the ground and slowly clenched his fists. He clenched his teeth and endured the greatest torture in the world. Life and death were the greatest tortures for humans. For little Ken, he could not hope that Lu Yin would be kind enough to let him go. Nothing he said could fool this person. If he wanted to get through this safely, the only way was for Lu Yin to not be calculative. But how could Lu Yin not care? Little Ken was caught by Wang Sun to mine on the Wang family's mainland. In reality, it was to mine the Yellow Springs water. Now that the Wang family was in decline, there was no one guarding it. The other people who were mining the Yellow Springs water had all run away. What right did he have to stay here? This place should be a painful memory for him and he should never want to get close to it. But he stayed here and kept staring. From the looks of it, he had been staring for a long time. What was he staring at? There was only the Yellow Springs water here. He knew something, or rather he wanted to get something. The Yellow Springs water was very important and Lu Yin cared about it. Now he was even more curious about what Little Ken knew. Little Ken did not speak. He just knelt on the ground and was almost lying on his stomach. He looked very pitiful. Lu Yin looked at him from above. Everything you want to get here is nothing compared to a sentence from me. A sentence from me can give you endless enjoyment in the future, but it can also make you sink into the abyss. The things here can't help you with anything. Otherwise, the Wang family would not be in its current state. Little Ken closed his eyes in pain. He did not care about Lu Yin's words, but since Lu Yin said this, it was obvious that he did not intend to let him go. His persistence was meaningless in front of Lu Yin. With a soft sound, Little Ken lost all his strength. He lay on the ground and remained silent. Lu Yin was not anxious. He just looked at him and occasionally looked around. He had been here before when he was pretending to be Hao Yu. So many years had passed in the blink of an eye. Thank you, brothers, for your understanding and support. I will try my best to make up for the missing chapters. Thank you. Chapter 32-31. Thinking back to that time, the 4-way scale was still a colossus that was hard to destroy. Now they were all gone, especially the White Dragon race. They were almost completely wiped out, but Long Tian and the rest were able to live a free life. Thinking about this, Lu Yin thought of Long Shi. Master Lu, please follow me. Little Can got up with difficulty and led the way in front. Little Can's current cultivation was close to that of an emissary. To be honest, this cultivation was very high. In the entire origin space, there weren't many people who had reached the emissary level. There were a lot of human elites gathered in the Above the Sky sect, but there were very few of them in the entire origin space. Little Can's cultivation was very low when he was in the back battlefield. After he was captured and brought to the Wang family continent, he had been mining and obviously didn't have the chance to cultivate. Even so, he still reached his current cultivation. This was what Lu Yin was curious about. He knew that even if he didn't have the time to cultivate, he wouldn't be able to do better than Little Can. This cultivation was also the reason why Little Can could enter the Wang family continent and monitor the yellow spring water. However, this cultivation was too weak in front of Lu Yin. It kept moving in one direction and the distance wasn't close. How far is it? I'll bring you there. Lu Yin said. Little Can said respectfully, with my speed it will take 3 days. Lu Yin took a step forward and twisted the void. In the next moment the scene in front of Little Can changed. When he saw the surroundings clearly, his pupils shrank. This? At this moment he appeared at the place he wanted to be. With his speed it would take him 3 days, but to Lu Yin it was only a moment. Distance didn't mean much to Lu Yin. Little Can was shocked. This was the power of a top elite, the master of the human race. When he reached a certain level he could ignore the distance between dimensions. Could he do it in the future? With complicated longing and fantasies for the future, as well as the regret of losing the treasure, Little Can brought Lu Yin to a secret place. There was a pawn civilization there. The pawn civilization was similar to the 3,000 great worlds of the fifth continent. They were all civilizations that were hidden under the current civilization. In the starry sky of trees, some powerful families had pawn civilizations that brought endless cultivators to the family. He had even fantasized about this universe being a pawn civilization, but such fantasies were too inconceivable. The pawn civilization had both advantages and disadvantages. The advantage was that it could constantly bring in cultivators to the starry sky tree. Even if those cultivators were loyal to the organizations they belonged to, they were still humans. The disadvantage was that the Eternals could infiltrate the pawn civilization and develop spies, or even turn the entire pawn civilization into the Eternals. Such a thing had happened before. After Lu Yin became the Pathmaster of the Above Heaven sect, he gave the order to suppress the pawn civilizations and make them invisible. During that time, many Eternal Corpse kings were discovered, and some of the pawn civilizations even had Ionian kingdoms within them. After that, the pawn civilization gradually disappeared. They were either hidden or destroyed, allowing the civilizations inside to walk out. The one in front of them was obviously a hidden pawn civilization. This is my home. Little Can said respectfully. Lu Yin's eyes flashed. Your home. Little Can replied, Master Lu, please follow me. After that, it entered the pawn civilization. Lu Yin followed suit. The pawn civilization had its own world, but it was very small, and Lu Yin could see it all with a single glance. This chapter is not finished, please turn the page. Suddenly he stared at a certain place and his body disappeared. Little Can knew that Lu Yin had discovered it and its expression calmed down. Could not hide it anymore. In a corner of the pawn civilization, there was a strange flower in full bloom. The flower was not beautiful, but the root of the flower was not ordinary. It was the root of wisdom. Lu Yin never knew that the root of wisdom could bloom. Not only did it bloom, but it also bore fruit, and the root of wisdom was planted in the yellow springs. Lu Yin appeared and looked at this scene in shock. The root of wisdom planted in the yellow springs actually bore fruit? How could such a thing happen? Little Can arrived and said, My name is Hui Can. I am the descendant of ancestor Hui in this universe. Lu Yin turned to look at Little Can. You are the descendant of ancestor Hui? Little Can nodded, yes. Lu Yin frowned. Ancestor Hui disappeared when the starry sky tree split into the fifth mainland. How can you be his descendant? Little Can looked at Lu Yin. To a certain extent, the Xinwu Plain can be considered the descendant of ancestor Chen. Lu Yin thought about it and agreed. Although ancestor Hui disappeared before the starry sky tree appeared, it did not mean that he did not have any descendants. What he could not understand was that ancestor Hui clearly had descendants, which was the Hui family of the 7 courts. Hui Wu was also his descendant, so which branch did this Little Can belong to? Are you the descendant of ancestor Hui or the Hui family? Lu Yin asked. Little Qin said, Ancestor Hui's descendant. The ancestor left us a mission, so I am very sure that I am a descendant of ancestor Hui. The mission is this. Lu Yin looked at the root of wisdom. Little Qin nodded. The Wang family has the yellow springs. It was not a secret during the ancestors' era, but no one knew what the yellow springs was. The ancestor used all methods to obtain the yellow springs and used it to cultivate the root of wisdom. He left us a mission to wait for the root of wisdom to blossom and bear fruit. The fruit of the root of wisdom will tell us what the yellow springs are. Our branch waited for many years, from the era of the Daoist sect in the 9 mountains and 8 seas until now. Finally, there was a result in my generation, but I did not understand what it meant. However, the results were limited unless there was more yellow springs. Therefore, I purposely exposed myself and went to the battlefield on the other side. Little Qin raised his head and looked at the root of wisdom with a complicated expression. I used the root of wisdom to make a deal with Wang Sun to protect my life on the battlefield on the other side, but it also attracted the Wang family's attention. In the end, I was captured by the Wang family and taken to the Wang family's mainland. After I was squeezed dry of all my value, I was sent to the mines to mine for Yellow Springs water. Everyone in my branch fled. This is not where my branch lives, or else we would not have been able to protect this place. Lu Yin looked at Little Qin in amazement. He knew that when he had schemed against the 4-way scales he had been quite impressive. However, this Little Qin in front of him was truly impressive. Lu Yin had been faking it, but Little Qin had not been faking it at all. He had calculated every step of the way. Just how much did he know about the Wang family? Any mistake would have led to certain death. The battlefield on the other side, the Wang family and the mines. Little Qin had calculated every step for the sake of the Yellow Springs water. The Wang family would never have dreamed that they would be schemed against by you. Lu Yin sighed in admiration. Many people coveted the Yellow Springs water. Perhaps the Lu family had wanted to obtain it as well, but the Wang family had been on guard against it. The person who had been able to move this mountain was actually such a minor character. Little Qin was bitter. It was not a scheme but a gamble with our lives. If we did not achieve this result, then our branch's existence would have been meaningless. Our ancestor's wisdom was unparalleled and he had schemed for thousands of years. This chapter is not finished. Please turn the page. However, leaving behind the limitless power source box array was enough to block the Eternals. And the scheme against the Yellow Springs water was actually just a hobby. Our branch did not receive any important missions and it was just a hobby. A hobby. Lu Yin recalled the various things that the Hui ancestor had done. He had schemed against the 6th mainland and used the Eternals to help the 5th mainland take revenge. He had almost caused the 6th mainland to be destroyed. He had set up a source box array and sealed many human-shaped source boxes to prevent the desolate gods from coming out. He had set up a limitless power source box array to block the Eternals from the battlefield. He had fused his consciousness into the main body of the sorcerer god and disguised himself as the sorcerer god. He had then cooperated with Lu Yin and the others to kill the sorcerer god. He had even sent his own son to the Eternals, but Lu Yin still did not know his true goal. Hui Wu had rather become a corpse than leave, so it had to be related to the Hui ancestor. This action had indirectly allowed Lu Yin to obtain 3 grains of inception dust, which he had used to break through to the progenitor realm. All of these actions had demonstrated the Hui ancestor's wisdom. He was too smart, so smart that no one could understand him. Lu Yin even believed that Little Qin's analysis of the Yellow Springs water was just a hobby of the Hui ancestor. For many years, no one had known what the Yellow Springs water was, not even the Lu family. However, the Hui ancestor was confident that he could analyze it based on his wisdom. The Hui ancestor might not have been invincible, but his wisdom was humanity's most valuable asset. And the result? Lu Yin looked at the Hui ancestor and asked. Little Qin was helpless. I don't understand. So you still need the Yellow Springs water? Yes. What did you see? Little Qin hesitated and bowed to Lu Yin. I really don't understand. Master Lu, please take a look for yourself. Lu Yin looked at Little Qin. What do you mean? Little Qin said, use the Yellow Springs water to water the Hui ancestor. I have been digging for the Yellow Springs water for many years, and with the items left behind by my ancestors, I was able to steal some occasionally. However, the accumulation over the years was used up more than 20 years ago. After that, the Wang family changed greatly, and I no longer had the chance to obtain the Yellow Springs water. Lu Yin understood. No wonder Little Can kept staring at the Yellow Springs water. He had thought that the Hui ancestors' fruit was for eating. It was difficult for Little Can to obtain the Yellow Springs water, but it was not difficult for Lu Yin. The Wang family already had a stockpile of the Yellow Springs water. Wang Fan had taken most of it away and left some for the Wang family, which eventually fell into the hands of the Lu family. Lu Yin quickly obtained the Yellow Springs water and asked Little Can to do it. Little Can poured some of the Yellow Springs water onto the Hui ancestors' fruit. At that moment, a sweet fragrance wafted over. Little Can closed its eyes as it smelled the fragrance, as if it was in an illusory starry sky, sensing something. Lu Yin quickly had the same feeling. He saw carvings after carvings and he saw a person carving something. The scene flashed by and it only lasted for a short period of time. Lu Yin and Little Can opened their eyes at the same time. Little Can looked at Lu Yin expectantly. Lu Yin frowned. Carving. Little Can's expression was helpless. Yes, carving. I saw it but I couldn't understand. Lu Yin couldn't understand it either. He didn't know how much Yellow Springs water Little Can had used over the years, but no matter how big the difference between the two of them was, he couldn't understand it with just one look. Then let's continue. However, he didn't bring Little Can with him this time. The fragrance was fixed and two people would definitely consume it faster than one person. End of chapter. Chapter 32-32. Little Can had no choice but to withdraw. He knew that once Lu Yin found out he would lose his share. However, it was not a pity as he could not obtain the Yellow Springs water anyway. He did not know how much Yellow Springs water he would need to understand those carvings. The Wang family continent was under the supervision of the Lu family, and he would never be able to obtain even a little bit of the Yellow Springs water. In the entire universe only Lu Yin could go there and see what the Yellow Springs water was. There was not much Yellow Springs water left behind by the Wang family, but when Little Can saw it, he exclaimed that it was far more than what he had obtained. This was nonsense as he stole it bit by bit. With his strength, how much Yellow Springs water could he dig up? Not to mention stealing a little bit from the limited Yellow Springs water. What Lu Yin had was left behind by Wang Fan for the Wang family. Although it was far less than what Wang Fan had taken away, it was still quite a lot. It was enough for people like Little Can to dig for thousands of years. Lu Yin asked the Lu family to collect the Yellow Springs water while he smelled the fragrance of the wisdom root fruit. He wanted to see what the Yellow Springs water was. Because of Lu Yin's order, the Wang family encountered another change. In the third extremity, Wang Jian's face was gloomy as an old woman from the Lu family stood in front of him. The old woman was calm. Hand it over. This is an order from Master Lu. If you go against it, no one will be able to save you. Wang Jian said, there is no more Yellow Springs water. Ever since the Lu family took over the Wang family continent, all the Yellow Springs water was handed over to them. The old woman sneered, Wang Jian, you are still alive thanks to Lady Wang Miao Miao. We know whether the Yellow Springs water you handed over was all or not. If not for Lady Miao Miao, do you think you could have guarded the third extremity? Wang Fan betrayed the human race and deserves to die. As the only remaining progenitor in the Wang family, you should know what will happen to you. Master Lu's order cannot be disobeyed. If you refuse, you will be killed. Wang Jian narrowed his eyes and wanted to say something, but Wang Miao Miao arrived and looked at Wang Jian. Father, hand over the Yellow Springs water. Wang Jian opened his mouth and looked at Wang Miao Miao. In the end, he could only sigh and pass the Yellow Springs water to the old woman. The old woman took it and looked at Wang Jian coldly. If anyone in the Wang family takes out the Yellow Springs water in the future and is punished for the crime of betraying humanity, there is no need for Master Lu to say anything. The Lu family will completely eradicate the Wang family. Wang Jian was furious. The old woman was merely a half-martial ancestor, yet she dared to threaten him. After the old lady left, she merely nodded at Wang Miao Miao. Regardless of whether Wang Miao Miao and Lu Qi ended up together in the end, Lu Yin was the one in charge of the current human race, and Lu Yin's orders were paramount. After the old woman left, Wang Miao Miao stared at Wang Jian and asked, why did you keep the Yellow Springs water? Wang Jian said bitterly, after all, it belongs to the Wang family. There's nothing left for the Wang family. No one can go against Master Lu's orders. No one is an exception, not even Lu Qi. This is the general trend of mankind, Wang Miao Miao chided. Wang Jian sighed, all right, I got it. Don't worry, there's no more underworld water, not even a drop. Wang Miao Miao believed Wang Jian's words, but the Lu family didn't. Therefore, the remaining members of the Wang family were captured and interrogated. Even the members of the Wang family who were imprisoned in the 100,000 waterways, from Wang Sun to a servant sweeping the floor, were all brought out for interrogation to ensure that there was no more underworld water. The Lu family also sent people to take over the Wang family's work and excavate the underworld water because Lu Yin might need it. 2 months passed by very quickly. Within these 2 months, Lu Yin had used up all the remaining underworld water before he walked out of the pond. Outside the pond civilization, little Ken was waiting respectfully. Even though he didn't know the outcome, he still hoped that Lu Yin would be able to find the outcome, as it would be a consolation for their branch. Lu Yin looked at little Ken and said, "You have never done anything wrong to me, nor have you betrayed humanity. Furthermore, you are the descendant of ancestor Hui. I don't want to snatch this fruit of wisdom from you." Little Ken looked at Lu Yin in astonishment. The world of cultivation was very cruel. There was no such thing as snatching or not snatching. It was normal to be discovered and snatched away. He was already prepared to lose the fruit of wisdom. But what did Master Lu mean? Lu Yin said calmly, "I will give you 2 choices now. First, the fruit of wisdom is still yours, but you have to stay in Lu Tianjing. The Lu family will give you enough underworld water until you can analyze the origin of the underworld water. You have to tell the Lu family that this is not the result of snatching it from you, but to answer to the ancestors of humanity. I won't explain anything else to you. Second, take me as your teacher." Little Ken was shocked. "Take you as my teacher?" Lu Yin looked at little Ken. This person had relied on his weak cultivation to enter the battlefield at the back when the fruit of wisdom had borne fruit and needed the water of the underworld. He had schemed against the Wang family and successfully obtained the water of the underworld. Lu Yin believed that little Ken would definitely have a way to escape the Wang family's control, and he would definitely have a backup plan. This kind of scheming was indeed impressive. He was both brave and smart. This person was also the descendant of ancestor Hui. The fruit of wisdom was beneficial to humanity. Lu Yin was greatly indebted to him. Taking this person as his disciple was also something he thought of when he faced the fruit of wisdom in the Pond civilization. It could be considered as making up for the regret of snatching this person's fruit of wisdom. This is just a suggestion. If you reject it, you can choose the first option, Lu Yin said calmly. Little Ken bowed to Lu Yin without hesitation. This disciple is willing to take Master Lu as his teacher. Please grant my wish. He wasn't stupid. Between the fruit of wisdom and Lu Yin, he would naturally choose Lu Yin. Not to mention what the fruit of wisdom could bring him, even if it could raise his strength to the progenitor realm or even higher. So what? How could it compare to the status of Master Lu's disciple? Master Lu's disciple needed to read books, which directly caused the starter space. No, it caused the entire Six Directions Guild to have an additional occupation. Master Lu's disciple could be considered the top of the human race. How could he not know how to choose? Little Ken's choice was within Lu Yin's expectations. He looked at Little Ken deeply. Go to the above heaven sect and look for Tu Lin. I will look for you. Little Ken was excited. Yes, master. After he finished speaking, he headed towards the 5th mainland. Lu Yin looked at Little Ken's back. This disciple was far more scheming than Tu Lin. He hoped that Little Ken wouldn't disappoint him. Palace? How did you know? Lu Yuan was surprised and looked at Lu Yin. Lu Yin said, Primogenitor, do you really have a palace-type battle technique? Lu Yuan nodded and recalled, Master has an ultimate skill called the Blue Sky Heavenly Palace. Master would often carve in the Blue Sky Heavenly Palace, and his carvings would eventually become battle prowess. The condition for us 3 realms and 6 paths to complete our apprenticeship is to create the Blue Sky Heavenly Palace. And the inspiration for me to plant the God Investiture catalog in the fertile land came from the Blue Sky Heavenly Palace. How did you know? Did Master tell you? Lu Yin shook his head and pondered for a moment. Old ancestor, I think I know what the Yellow Springs water is. Lu Yuan's eyes lit up. What is it? Lu Yin looked at old ancestor Lu Yuan. The Blue Sky Palace. Lu Yuan blinked. The Blue Sky Palace is the Yellow Springs water? Are you kidding me? You must be joking. Lu Yin told Lu Yuan about Ancestor Hui's arrangement and what he saw when he watered the fruit of wisdom with the Yellow Springs water. Lu Yuan was stunned. If that's the case, the Yellow Springs water might really be the Blue Sky Palace. But how? How did the Blue Sky Palace turn into the Yellow Springs water? Lu Yuan was puzzled. Lu Yin didn't understand either. This was also the reason why he looked for old ancestor Lu Yuan. He wanted to find out the reason why the Blue Sky Palace turned into the Yellow Springs water. But now it seemed impossible. The two discussed for a while and even called Jialan Jilua over, but they still couldn't come to a conclusion. Hongyan Mavis and Wu Tian were guarding the land of disaster, surrounding the 6 paths of reincarnation world to prevent the eternal race's experts from escaping. Little Seven, since you can see the carvings, can you learn the Blue Sky Palace? Lu Yuan suddenly asked. Jialan Jilua looked at Lu Yin. If you can learn the Blue Sky Palace, your strength will soar. Lu Yin was curious. Is the Blue Sky Palace very powerful? They were only focused on how to turn the Blue Sky Palace into the Yellow Springs water and never talked about the Blue Sky Palace's power. Looking at old ancestor Lu Yuan and Jialan Jilua's expressions, the Blue Sky Palace seemed to be extraordinary. Old ancestor Lu Yuan's expression turned serious. It's not just powerful, it's very perverse. Jialan Jilua continued. Our condition is to break out of the Blue Sky Palace, but whether we fight alone or together, the final result will be the same. Failed? Lu Yin asked subconsciously. Jialan Jilua was dissatisfied. If we failed, where did the 3 realms 6 paths come from? Lu Yin was speechless. The tone just now clearly indicated that they had failed. I mean, one of us can break out of the Blue Sky Palace, but barely. 9 of us together can also break out of the Blue Sky Palace, but also barely. Jialan Jilua said. Lu Yin didn't believe it. 3 realms 6 paths, 9 of us together can barely break out of the Blue Sky Palace? Then how can one of us do it alone? Lu Yuan said, this is the power of the Blue Sky Palace. As long as we are in the Sky Palace, there is no such thing as energy consumption. Let's put it this way, a battle between progenitors will consume energy, their own strength, and even the power of the progenitor world, while the sequence rules will consume sequence particles. But for the person who uses the Blue Sky Palace, nothing will be consumed. Even if the sequence particles are consumed, the Blue Sky Palace can instantly form a battle force, so as long as it is used well, the attack of the Blue Sky Palace is endless. The simplest example is you can use Chu Haizi's left arm and Go Lian's full strength slash with Death Aura. If you learn the Blue Sky Palace, then congratulations, you can use this slash countless times and it will never be consumed. Lu Yin's eyes widened. There is such a thing? He thought about the scene of him being able to use the Grim Reapers slash countless times in the second battlefield of disaster. Not to mention Tianfeng, he could even slay Xianxia, and the Dark Mother Tree he could slowly saw through it. Was there really such a thing? Jialan Jilua sighed. This is the Blue Sky Palace, one of Master's ultimate techniques. There is a limit to any power that anyone can use, but the Blue Sky Palace doesn't. It turns quantity into infinity, but it doesn't affect quality. So we never understood how the 4 protectors could defeat Master even if they worked together. Only when I saw the 4 locks formation in the previous battle did I understand that Tianfeng must have used the Blue Sky Palace as a lock to lock Master's hands, which is why Master lost. Otherwise, even if there were a few more primordial realm experts, they wouldn't have been able to defeat Master. They wouldn't have been able to break through the Blue Sky Palace alone. Chapter 32-33. Lu Yuan stared at Lu Yin. Little Seven, is it possible for you to cultivate the Sky Palace? Lu Yin was excited. It's possible. Then go and cultivate it, it will definitely help you. Lu Yuan encouraged. Lu Yin took a deep breath and looked at his hands. The 4 locks formation was still there, but it would not affect his cultivation of the Sky Palace. What he lacked was the yellow spring water. Although he could cultivate now, he was afraid that it would not go smoothly at a critical moment. With the yellow spring water, he could smell the fragrance of the wisdom root at any time. Yellow spring water, he needed a sufficient amount of yellow spring water. Not long after, Lu Yin, Lu Yuan and Jialan Jilua appeared on the Wang family continent. This time they came not only for the yellow spring water, but also for the 4 locks formation. Since they knew that the 4 locks formation had sealed the progenitor's hands, they naturally had to find the 4 locks formation and find a way to undo it. This way the progenitor's hands could return. Every time he thought of the progenitor biting the string of the sequence after losing his hands, Lu Yin felt terrible. That person should not have suffered such pain. He had once complained about the progenitor and the extremely brilliant era of the above heaven. He thought that if the progenitor had understood the threat of the Eternals correctly, none of this would have happened. This thought was the same as the Six Directions Society's thought of the Genesis space, but they treated it as the former above heaven. But now he understood that there were some things that even the progenitor could not control. The past was not something they could easily see clearly now. What they needed to do now was to protect Immemorial City, defeat the Eternals and the Guardians of the Four Directions, and return humanity to its former glory. Regardless of whether there was a limit to the universe, no matter what kind of existence would appear, they had to do it. Lu Yin thought of the Lost Clan. The Lost Clan's powerhouses had stepped out of the river of time and participated in the final battle. At that time their feelings should be very similar to his now. Both of them disregarded everything. The Wang family continent trembled and slowly floated, rubble falling down. Lu Yuan took action and shattered a layer of rocks and various materials that had accumulated on the surface of the Wang family continent over countless years, finally revealing its true appearance. A huge palm surrounded the yellow spring and floated in the air. Lu Yin looked at it in a daze. The progenitor's body was not big, but its palm was so huge. It seemed like this was one of the progenitor's battle form. The progenitor could become gigantic. Scope. Lu Yuan growled and led Lu Yin and Zhou up onto the progenitor's palm. They easily found the Four Locks formation. In the past, even though Lu Yuan knew that the Wang family continent was the progenitor's palm, he thought that the progenitor was dead and the palm was broken here, so he never thought of checking it. This was what he regretted the most now. If he had thought of this earlier, regardless of whether he could solve the Four Locks formation or not, at the very least, the Wang clan would not have participated in the matter of exiling the Lu clan. As for the Wang clan itself, they didn't dare to restore the original appearance of the palm. Otherwise they wouldn't be able to keep it. At the very least he couldn't protect the yellow springs. After countless years of mining, the Wang family had indeed lost more than half of the yellow springs, but there was still a small portion that circled around their hands. The three of them climbed up to the wrist where the Four Locks formation was located. It was exactly the same as the Four Locks formation on Lu Yin's wrist, but it was much larger. Let me. Zhou held his spear and stabbed towards the Four Locks formation. Lu Yuan and Lu Yin watched as the spear bounced off the Four Locks array, completely useless. Lu Yuan took a step forward. If it's that easy to break through the fourth layer, even Master wouldn't have acted like that. As he spoke, he struck the Four Lock formation with his palm. The palm strike was the same as Zhou. It was useless. Zhou sneered. Is that all you've broken through to the primordial realm? Lu Yuan snorted coldly. The greatest difference between the primordial realm is that step. It represents the right to reach eternal life. As for battle prowess, you can only experience it when you face cultivators. Zhou did not refute that. The greatest advantage of the primordial realm in battle prowess was that laws could not allow them to get close. Experts of the laws of sequence could not use laws against primordial realm experts, which was equivalent to crippling most of their strength. On the other hand, primordial realm experts could use the laws of sequence fearlessly. That was a difference of 2 times. The only exception was Lu Yin. He relied on progenitor realm to forcefully defeat experts of the laws of sequence. He was the only existence who could fight against primordial realm experts without being suppressed. No one else could do that. As a result, Lu Yin could kill Di Qiong and Tian Feng. It was very difficult for others to do so. In the following time, Lu Yuan and Zhou kept attacking. They even specially changed people to guard the 6 paths of reincarnation, letting Wu Tian and Hongyan Mavis try. Unfortunately, no one could break the Four Lock formation. It's useless. This is using Master's power to trap himself. Tian Feng must be using Master's power to trap himself. If you want to break it, it's equivalent to breaking one of Master's ultimate skills. It should be the Azure Heaven Palace. Which one of you is confident that you can break Master's Azure Heaven Palace? Wu Tian sighed. Hongyan Mavis was helpless. The Azure Heaven Palace. How nostalgic. Back then we all rushed to the Azure Heaven Palace one by one and fought our way out, making a name for ourselves as the 3 worlds and 6 paths. But actually none of us could beat the Azure Heaven Palace. Lu Yuan frowned. Even if all 9 of us attack together, we still can't beat the Azure Heaven Palace. Master's ultimate skill is too abnormal. Is there no other way? Lu Yin could not help but ask. Wu Tian looked at Lu Yin's hands and feet. There is no other way. If you want to break it, only Master can do it himself or find a way to break it. You have never experienced the Azure Heaven Palace, so you will never understand how difficult it is to deal with the endless power. But we can break your 4 locks formation. Do you want to try? Lu Yin rejected immediately. If he wanted to try, he would have asked Lu Yuan to do it. It was not that he did not trust them, but it was a matter of faith. Breaking the 4 locks formation was equivalent to breaking his 4 strongest powers. This would be detrimental to Lu Yin's future cultivation. It was like planting a seed that would lead to failure. Needless to say, the 4 locks formation disgusted everyone. This was the reason why Lu Yuan never took the initiative to say that he wanted to break Lu Yin's 4 locks formation. A strong person's faith was very important. He could only break it himself. Senior Wu Tian. Lu Yin opened his mouth but was interrupted. Call me Wu De. Lu Yin was stunned. Wu Tian looked at Lu Yin and smiled. You have met Master, so you should have a nickname. As soon as he said this, Jialan Zhulao looked over curiously. Lu Yin's face was calm. No. Jialan Zhulao sneered. Impossible, Master's habit will never change. Say it, don't be shy. This is a good thing, it means that Master acknowledges you. I really don't. Lu Yin was very serious. After he finished speaking, he glanced at Hongyan Mavis and Lu Yuan. Only they knew the name Zhuzi. Lu Yin felt that it was not proper to say it out loud. Hongyan Mavis said, All right, don't make things difficult for him. Zhuzi, what did you want to say? Zhuzi? I see, it's a good name. Lu Yin was speechless and looked at Hongyan Mavis. Hongyan Mavis coughed. Sorry, it was a slip of the tongue. Lu Yuan laughed. All right, it's a small matter. Little Seven, what did you want to say? Lu Yin was helpless and looked at Wu Tian. I wanted to ask why Senior did not leave the 3rd Calamity region. What is this so-called fate? Lu Yuan and the rest were silent, their faces solemn. Wu Tian's expression changed. When the first mainland was destroyed and Master met with mishap, I was 1 step ahead of everyone and saw the final battle between Master and the 4 protectors. Master broke his own hands and defeated the 4 protectors. When he saw me, he gave me a warning. He looked at Lu Yin with a solemn face. Your guess is true. Lu Yin did not understand. Lu Yuan continued. Master once guessed that the extreme is evil. In the universe, anything that reaches its limit will turn into another species. A species that is not accepted by the universe but wants to monopolize the universe. Perhaps this is a realization that Master gained from crossing the Calamity region. This new species could also be a type of event or a type of constellation in the universe. It is called fate. Wu Tian said in a low voice, if the speculation of fate is true and the guardians of the 4 directions are secretly trying to kill Master, then either the guardians of the 4 directions have reached some kind of limit, or there is some kind of limit behind them. No matter what the reason is, I know that fate is true. I also felt a chill at that moment as if something was watching me. At this point, his expression turned ugly. At that time, there was definitely something watching me, so I couldn't get close to Master. Master beat me up and I don't know what happened after that. How did Master go to Primordial City and what Primordial City is? I'm not sure. I only know that in the battles that followed as more and more continents were destroyed, I could always feel that something was watching me. With the continents destroyed, I was powerless to reverse the situation. I also learned that the Eternal Race's battle of the Divine Commandment had reached its end, so I was captured by the Eternal Race and locked in the 3rd Calamity region to attract the attention of fate to the Eternal Race and not us humans. This is a secret that only the few of us know. Only Master can guess the existence of fate, Lu Yuan said. Lu Yin finally understood why Wu Tian was unwilling to leave the 3rd Calamity region. He had the ability to leave and could immediately recover his strength during the battle in the 2nd Calamity region. He did not need anyone's help from the start. So the reason you appeared in the 2nd Calamity region was because of the 4 protectors? Lu Yin asked. Wu Tian nodded. The 4 protectors represent fate. Since they have already declared war on the humans, there is no need for me to remain in the 3rd Calamity region. Do you feel the gaze of fate now? Lu Yin suddenly asked. Lu Yuan, Hongyan Mavis and Jialan Zhilua all stared at Wu Tian. This was a very important question. Wu Tian sighed. Not at the moment. They all sighed in relief. However, when they looked at each other, they saw the helplessness in each other's eyes. So what if he could not feel it now? Fate would eventually appear, and only the primogenitors had been able to sense the existence of fate. Then what about the future? Lu Yin was now very certain that there was an unimaginable existence in this universe, and everything that happened in the universe was related to this existence. The defeat of the above heaven sect, the weakening of the humans by the four protectors, and even the appearance of the eternal race could all be related to this existence. Chapter 32-34. Lu Yin recalled what Grand Elder Shangu had said. The humans had won the final battle in their universe, but they had destroyed that omnipotent game and lost in the end. Then, could everything that was happening now also be some kind of game? Lu Yin didn't want what had happened in Grand Elder Shangu's universe to happen again in this universe. If there really was an omnipotent existence, then what was it? It was clearly a monster. Wu Tian and Hongyan Mavis went to the 6 paths of reincarnation to continue guarding the 6 paths of reincarnation. Lu Yuan took the progenitor's palm to Lu Tianjing. Lu Yin took the remaining yellow springs with him, as he wanted to use it to cultivate the Sky Palace. He raised his hand and his die appeared. If he wanted to cultivate, the time-stop space was the best choice. Of course, the 5 spirit races could do it as well, as the flow of time there was very different from normal. Lu Yin now controlled the resources of the entire universe, and he could use all sorts of methods to cultivate. In the end, he chose to roll his die, as that would not only give him the time-stop space but also other points. Furthermore, he felt that only in the time-stop space would he not be seen by fate. This was just a form of psychological comfort. In the blink of an eye, 3 years passed in the real world. During these 3 years, the outside world had not changed much, as it had only been 3 years. Almost all of the Eternal Kingdom had been destroyed, and the people who had just been captured could return to their original places. Those who had been born in the Eternal Kingdom or had long since betrayed humanity were sent to other places. Tianxi and Tinan did not show up, and the Sky Sect could not find them. Lu Yin had always been on guard against the universe behind Tianxi, but there was no movement either. The humans chased after the corpse kings everywhere, and the number of corpse kings in the Eternal Races universe had rapidly decreased. The defeat in the 6 paths of reincarnation had caused the Eternals to lose their foundation, resulting in a one-sided defeat. The sole true God led the ancient gods and remained in the 6 paths of reincarnation, indifferent to the outside world. To them it did not matter if the corpse kings were destroyed or not. As long as they won the war, they could create as many corpse kings as they wanted. As for the Sky Sect, none of the sole true God and the others could escape. All of them would die. The 6 paths of reincarnation of the Grand Empyrean continuously wiped out the sole true God's power, but this was a long process. Perhaps even she herself did not know where the end point was. In the outer realms, countless parallel universes continued to draw closer to the sect above the heavens. In their eyes, the current sect above the heavens was extremely resplendent. Even though they had not seen the sect above the heavens in the past, the difference was not too great. It had been 3 years in the real world, but he had been cultivating in the time-stop space for 50 years. He had never cultivated for so long before. He had been cultivating the blue sky heavenly palace for 50 years, but unfortunately he had not succeeded. However, he had a very deep understanding of the azure heavenly palace. He also knew that it was not easy to cultivate this unique skill. At least he could not do it now. Even if he broke the 4 locks formation, he could not do it. He needed an opportunity. An opportunity? That's right, how could Master's ultimate skill be so easy to cultivate? Although you're cultivating a star source, that kind of ultimate skill isn't something that a star source can decide. Lu Yuan sighed. Lu Yin asked, in the 3 realms and 6 paths, it seems like only Senior Wu Tian cultivated with astral sources while the others walked their own paths. Then forefather, your path is the God-sealing catalog? Lu Yuan said, my path is a fertile land. From the beginning we were all like this. We all used astral sources to cultivate, but gradually, everyone's path became different. No one even cultivated Master's consummate skill. Master only imparted one skill to us. The primogenitor's scripture. Lu Yin asked. Lu Yuan nodded. Other than that there was nothing else. Chuhiai cultivated death chi, Nyonyo cultivated fate, and the others all had their own paths. My path was to cultivate the God-sealing catalog in the fertile land. No matter what situation I was in, I would focus on the general platform and the God Sealing Catalog. But the God Sealing Catalog is not a cultivation power. The cultivation power does not represent the path one will take. Qi's path was the Tao of Tianyi. He also cultivated astral sources, but his path was not astral sources. The astral sources are vast, and regardless of whether it is Qi or me, we both walk the opposite path of astral sources. I specialize in big moves. Lu Yin said, then I'm also not walking the path of astral sources. Lu Yuan nodded, of course not, you haven't for a long time. When did you stop using astral sources in battle? Lu Yin thought about it for a long time, but he could not remember. None of the 4 inner worlds were powered by astral sources. The starry sky in his heart was also formed by astral sources, death qi and other forces. He was no longer a pure astral sources cultivator. The path of martial arts universities is astral sources. With astral sources as the foundation, they can create weapons cultivation methods and educate all living beings. Only by cultivating astral sources can they educate all living beings in this primordial space. Lu Yuan was quite impressed. If they want, martial arts university can walk their own path, but he didn't. This is also why we all admire him. Speaking of which, it won't be easy for you to cultivate the Sky Palace, but I believe you can do it. Lu Yin also believed that he could do it. In fact, he already knew what the opportunity was, and now he was waiting for something very important. In the first zone of disaster, the Eternal Kingdom was completely in ruins. Many people used to live here, including the Corpse King, but now they were all gone. In the empty underground, stones fell and made soft sounds. A pair of eyes suddenly opened from the ground and looked outside. After a while, a hoarse voice said, "There's no one here. Move immediately." "I don't think we should move. This place is already in ruins. The sect above heaven won't notice here. It's safer to stay here," another voice said. The first voice said, "The sect above heaven won't just search once. They will search the Eternal Kingdom again and again until this place is completely destroyed. What you see is only ruins. What they want is dust. It's too dangerous to go out now. It's even more dangerous if we don't go out. It hasn't been long since the sect above heaven destroyed this place. This is their blind spot. Leave immediately." Not long after, the ground shook slightly. A pair of hands reached out from the ground and lifted the ground. An old man crawled out. The old man's face was thin, and his eyes were dim as if they could be extinguished at any time. However, there was an imperceptible cruelty in the depths of his eyes. He looked around carefully and said, "Let's go." Following that, one figure after another crawled out of the ground. These people's cultivations were not high, but they all had one thing in common. Their eyes were obviously dim, but they had the opposite sharpness. Their eyes were like those of vultures, and ordinary people did not dare to look them in the eye. These people walked along the ruins of the Eternal Kingdom, looking for something on the ground from time to time. "I don't know how long it'll take to search like this. What can we do? The Stargate has been destroyed. The only Corpse King with a Stargate is also in the Eternal Kingdom. Du died on the day he was destroyed. If he didn't die, we would have been discovered. We can't escape at all. Shut up. We betrayed humanity long ago. Once we're discovered, there's no way out. There's no way out if we live underground. Why don't we take a risk? When the Eternal Kingdom comes back, we can use the 2 poisons to return. The race won't blame us." The atmosphere was silent. Only light footsteps could be heard. The group kept looking for a Stargate on the ground. They wanted to escape from the realm of disaster. On the Black Mother Tree, the one true God looked in their direction and frowned. A bunch of idiots. One's perspective was determined by one's size, and so was one's height. Ordinary people would never be able to understand what it was like for a cultivator to see the world with a single glance. It was like looking at a lower dimension from a higher dimension, where one could see every detail clearly. These people also had no way of understanding how laughable their actions were in the eyes of a progenitor. Destroying the Eternal Kingdom did not necessarily require the use of a progenitor, as the Limitless Empire's mechas were more than enough. Thus, the group escaped and avoided the mecha's detection. Although they could fight against a progenitor, they did not have the power of a progenitor. However, the moment they emerged from the ground, the human powerhouse that was circling the Black Mother Tree saw them clearly. Regardless of whether it was their expressions, movements, or words, they were all clearly seen. Very quickly someone found them. A terrifying pressure made it difficult for them to breathe. These people were all in lighters and they could at most be considered alive in the realm of disaster. It was impossible for them to live. When a progenitor's pressure appeared, they had no chance of resisting. It was Xiaxin. Xiaxin looked at the group's sorry state as they fled and his gaze turned cold. He easily restrained them and appeared in front of the skinny old man. "Who are you people?" The skinny old man hurriedly knelt. "Sir, please take us away from this hell. We are just ordinary cultivators who were captured and brought to the Eternal Kingdom. We don't know anything." "That's right, we don't know anything. Sir, please take us away." "I beg you, my lord." Xiaxin was indifferent. "What two poisons?" The skinny old man's heart sank and he was confused. What poisons?" Xiaxin looked at him. "The poison of time and the poison of life?" Above the sky sect, Lu Yin was delighted. "I've finally found them. The poison of time and the poison of life had been developed by the Eternals to deal with humans. Lu Yin had first encountered them on the Shenwu continent, where a short old man had threatened Ming Xiaoshu's maid and poisoned Ming Xiaoshu. He had then observed Ming Xiaoshu's reaction in order to determine when Ming Xiaoshu would die. Ever since then, the poison of life had continuously appeared, especially after Yenna had swallowed it. If Mr. Mu had not appeared and used a secret technique to split Yenna's personality, she would have died. As for the poison of time, it had caused the primordial space to descend into despair. Only after Lu Yin had restored the progenitor's sword and restored time to normal had the poison of time been dispelled. Both poisons were very powerful. After the Eternals had been defeated, Lu Yin had ordered a search. The poison of time was the antidote to the illusory poison, and each day that passed without finding it, the Moon Immortal, Ice Master and the others would not be cured. Lu Yin also wanted to get rid of that illusory beast. It was only now that the poison of time had been found. The timing was perfect.